Good evening. On behalf of the governing body of Passaic, we welcome you to the May 19th, 2026 City Council meeting. In accordance with Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, adequate notice of this meeting was provided by resolution of the Municipal Council adopted on June 17th, 2025, setting forth the schedule of meetings for the year 2025-2026. Notice was published and posted on the City Hall bulletin board by the Office of the City Clerk. Please be further advised this meeting will be conducted in person. The Zoom stream provided is for viewing only and is offered to the public as a convenience. On May 7th, 2026, public notice and Zoom instructions for this meeting were posted on the City of Passaic website at www.cityofpassaic.com, Council Agendas. Instructions are also available on the last page of this agenda. Please be guided accordingly.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Monk,
Present.
Councilman Love,
Present.
Councilwoman Mello,
Present.
Councilman Mayor,
Present.
Councilman Garcia,
Present.
Councilwoman Colon Montañez,
Present.
and Council President Scheer.
President, shall we all please rise?
Heavenly Father, we want to thank you, Lord, for allowing us to meet this evening. We ask you to please guide us in the decisions that will take place this evening. In your beloved name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As a note to members of the council, there are two pieces of correspondence from citizens that have been included in your materials for this evening. If you don't have a copy of our agenda, they're available immediately outside chambers, also available to you through the website, the city's website. There you'll receive all the information the council has received for tonight's meeting from the administration. We're up to Roman number 4 on our agenda tonight, hearing of citizens. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-1 et sec, the council opens every public meeting for comments of the public. However, in accordance with NJSA 10:4-12, nothing in this act shall be construed to limit the discretion of a public body to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation at any meeting. Therefore, please be advised that the council will not entertain any comments from persons who communicate obscene material, make statements which are considered bias, intimidation, in which a person intends to intimidate any individual or group because of race, color, religion, gender, handicap, sexual orientation, or ethnicity, or makes comments intending to harass or speak any offensive language. The person who makes this statement will relinquish their allotted 5 minutes for public discussion. The council looks forward to comments from members of the public. We respectfully remind you that if you would like to speak before the council, that you share with us your name, and also recognize that we ask that everyone speak for no more than 5 minutes. Is there anyone who'd like to address the council? Please, sir. That would be you, Carl.
Thank you. I distributed a sheet of paper which basically says what I'm about to say. First of all, I want to thank Police Chief Guzman and his department. When I spoke here a few weeks ago, the next morning I saw action. Safety is one of the two major issues I want to talk about. Howard Avenue is a broad street. When I first moved there 30-some years ago, there's a yellow line down the center of the street. It didn't go anywhere, quite frankly. 21 didn't go anywhere. There wasn't a lot of traffic. I brought in some speed. I have a radar gun. I brought in some speed numbers last trip. Cars are flying up and down the street. And worse yet, there's a crosswalk, allegedly a crosswalk at Spring and Howard. School children, parents, mothers with strollers all have to basically wait for cars rather than the other way around. It's dangerous, and I think we need to address that. I have several suggestions. The police cannot be there all the time. Suggestions will include signage, rumble strips, electronic speed signs. I see those in many communities. Sign that tells you how fast you're going and perhaps suggests that you're going too fast. And of course, continued enforcement. But again, Howard is a dangerous street. There are over 50 children living on the few blocks between Park and River Road. I may have undercounted, actually. It's just dangerous. I believe also that Spring and Howard should be a four-way stop sign. That's the first issue. I'm waiting to listen to comments. The second issue is noise. When I moved to Howard, Porter Spring and Howard in 1995, 21 didn't go anywhere. It stopped somewhere in the middle of downtown Passaic. When 21 was extended to reach 20 and 80, it became a major highway, and the new construction got noise barriers. The old construction only got a chain link fence, which means myself and my neighbors, we can't sit on our front porch unless we put on headphones. We can't open our windows to let in some fresh air, not a day like today, but it's just the noise of traffic, motorcycles, everything else on 21 is all day long. Even worse during the morning rush hour, and you live nearby, you know that. The morning and evening rush hours and such, we need to get noise barriers. I spoke with the chief of staff of Congressman Powell's office, who's an old friend from back when Congressman Pasquarella, his rest in peace, was there. He suggested that it has to come from the bottom up. So I'd hope that the city could speak up to the county, to the state, and then to the federal government to get us noise barriers for that old stretch of 21, from Route 3 up to where the new, well, fairly new noise barriers are. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Just a quick question, if I may,
Sure.
Mr. Singer. You said you had met with or spoken with Chief Guzman.
I'm sorry.
You had mentioned that you had spoken to Chief Guzman, our police chief.
I saw him at the end of the previous meeting, and he was very helpful, and there was a police car out there the next day. I saw the flashers going, so it must have given somebody a ticket for speeding. Coincidentally, we both have degrees from Fairleigh Dickinson in criminal justice. I don't know why. If you need an 80-year-old rookie, I'll volunteer as a police. But we spoke about it, and he was very responsive. And on previous occasions, he put up the trailer with the speed thing. But again, that only is there when he's there or when the police officer is there. There needs to be some permanent stuff in terms of signage and the other suggestions that I made.
Deputy Chief Gentile, is this something that we can leave to your trusted good hands? That you'll speak with the police chief and perhaps sit with Mr. Singer and get some further details? That would be great. Obviously, Mr. Singer, this is
Thank you.
one of many, many, many priorities. Not to make it less than it is extremely serious. It's an extremely serious issue, and we would like to deal with it just as seriously. But obviously, some of these things are extraordinarily costly. Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to address the council, please?
Council President, before the person addresses through the Council President, I just want to inform you that we recently purchased these new signs that go on poles that actually serve the same purpose as those mobile speed readers. We placed one on Hamilton in one by school number 6. So these signs go up on the actual light poles, and as the cars drive by, it tells you how fast you're going, but also these red and blue lights light up if you go beyond the speed limit. We've ordered some additional signs that we will be exploring, putting in areas, residential areas like these. They do serve as a pretty effective deterrent as individuals. Well, most of us have been conditioned whenever we see red and blue lights to slow down, but also the indication some people generally don't realize how fast they're going in these areas. So we did want to share, obviously, through the council to the residents and those watching online, that you will be seeing more of those go up as we ordered them through our purchasing.
Thank you. Currently, there's only one speed limit sign in each direction, one at the foot of River Road for cars going westbound and one at Park for cars going eastbound. So easy to overlook. Thank you.
Very good, sir. Anyone else? would like to address the council?
Good evening, Council President. There's an ordinance on the agenda for tonight.
I'm sorry, your name, please, sir?
My name is Yosef Wolf.
Thank you.
There's an ordinance on the agenda for second and final reading for a pilot program. At the last council meeting, I think was for a first reading and was pushed off. So I just want to know, if it was not passed at the last meeting, is it due for a final reading or a first reading?
I'm sorry, which ordinance are you referring to?
For the pilot for Spear Village.
Do you know what ordinance number that is offhand?
Ordinance number 3, 252926.
Which, that's what I wanted to hear. So, Mr. Wolf, it was presented for first reading. It is now up tonight for second and final reading.
Okay, so it's not like you have to approve it, it's just a reading.
No, if it receives a positive vote, it takes effect.
Did it get a positive vote at the last meeting?
For release for second reading, yes, it did.
Okay,
Ordinances for first reading are usually at the end of our agenda, whereas ordinances for second and final reading are at the beginning of our agenda.
okay, thank you. I want to thank the council members at the last meeting. I was not here, but I want to thank them for questioning some of the items that were presented, including the pilot program. I think it's a very intense and complex agreement for a very complex project. Mr. Fernandez, the business administrator, had mentioned that there is a council member, a former council member on the board, on the planning board, whose pet peeve, quote unquote, is parking. I myself was present on Zoom at the 2 planning board meetings about 2 properties on Broadway that Mr. Fernandez was referencing. At the first meeting, Mr. Schwartz asked the presenter, the planner, the engineer, the architect, he asked, why, if this is a brand new project and you're knocking down 2 houses, why do you need a variance for parking? Why can't you build it from scratch with ample parking? And he was actually quite animated about it. And they pulled back from requesting a vote, and they presented it again 2 weeks later. At the next meeting, they added, not as Mr. Fernandez said, 3 parking spots. They added 2 compact parking spots. So this 22-unit project with 3,500 square feet of commercial space and 4 storefronts in the middle of a block, not on a corner, received approval because they added 2 compact parking spots and nobody asked any questions. 22 apartments, 3,500 square feet on the second floor for offices that do not need parking, and 4 storefronts that do not need parking, received approval with no pushback because instead of asking for a vote, they pushed it off 2 weeks and replaced 2 compact parking spots in the back of a driveway that has an egress and a deed restriction with the neighbor. This was an 11,000 square foot property. And I'm asking, does the council really realize that the planning board are very nice people, but they seriously seem disenfranchised and disinterested in the basic questions? Thank you.
Mr. Fernandez, you're familiar with the meeting that took place?
Yes,
Um,
the board members were adamant that they wanted more parking space. They made the developer come back. They brought in additional parking spaces to the satisfaction of the board members, and that's why they're there.
And it received the board's approval after?
It did. After they came back, it wasn't immediate. They made them revise the plans, bring in more parking, and it was to their satisfaction.
So it's not as if this was unaddressed?
Correct.
Good, that's just what I wanted to hear. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council, please?
Do I have any more time?
Does
He
he have,
had 1 minute left before.
we'll take you for the minute.
Thank you. The board still had to give a variance for parking. They approached with 17 parking spots. They needed a minimum of more than 21, but because they chose to do 4 EV parking spots, they reduced the requirement to 21, and they asked for variance for 4, and they came back and they added 2 compact parking spots. This project had commercial space. A commercial space by city ordinance does not require parking. It had office space. City ordinance does not need parking. So they clumped together a tremendous amount of usage into 11,000 square foot lot. Additionally, Mr. Fernandez mentioned that properties over 10 units need their own private garbage collection. Other projects required it. This project, the board did not require any private garbage collection. They let them off the hook, and the city will be paying for the garbage collection from this 22-unit, 4 storefront, 3,500 square foot commercial space.
That is your 5 minutes, sir. Commissions are very interesting in local government and in non-local government as well, for that matter. And that is power and resolve is given from an elected body to an appointed body. That appointed body is appointed for a reason, in the planning board's case, to reflect the direction and interests of the administration and specifically of the mayor. Whereas in another board, for example, the zoning board is just the same for representing the council. In all cases, boards are given tremendous latitudes in doing what they do, representing the people as they do. These are all people who have gone through various courses, giving them qualification, at least by the state's resolve, that what they're doing is correct, most importantly, legal. In addition, each one of these boards has an attorney that stay with it throughout to ensure that the board protects itself, the city, and the appointing agency. Whereas I can well understand your concern about this particular case, and have no doubt that there's more to learn about this and any other case for that matter. But the board has its right, and the city is obliged to follow that unless there's something so egregious. I cannot find something so egregious in this position. It seems to me the vote was taken, a majority of the planning board members voted in favor of it, whether for good or for bad. It is within their purview and within their right, and it would be wrong to in any way jeopardize that right and that responsibility, both to them as well as to their appointing agents. I hear what you had to say. I appreciate it very much. During discussion of the ordinance, you are certainly allowed, as anyone else is, to raise additional points if you would like. That is up to you. That is at your pleasure. But as far as this council goes, there's nothing which appears to be so egregious to suggest anything but moving forward. Does anyone else like to address the council? Seeing no hands.
Close the public portion.
Second.
There's a motion, there's a second to close public portion.
Councilman Monk,
Yes.
Councilman Love,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mello,
Yes.
Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Garcia,
Yes.
Councilwoman Colon Montañez,
Yes.
and Council President Scheer.
Yes, thank you. We're up to Roman numeral 5 on our agenda. Ordinance for second and final reading. Hearing is required. Number 1, proposed ordinance number 2523-26, an ordinance amending the East Side redevelopment plan for property identified on the official tax map of the city of Passaic as Block 1036, lots 1 and 8, corresponding to 1 Market Street in the city of Passaic, introduced at the April 14, 2026 council meeting. Is there a motion, please, to open public hearing?
Move it.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Monk,
Yes.
Councilman Love, Councilwoman Mello,
Yes.
Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Garcia,
Yes.
Councilwoman Colon Montañez,
Yes.
and Council President Scheer.
Yes, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. At this time, the council will be deliberating proposed ordinance number 2523-26. Is there anyone who would like to address the council on this matter and this matter only?
Thank you, Council President. I would like to ask, in the application for these redevelopment plans, it seems that the city has basic requirements. For example, you need to have a,
Mr. Wu, I'm going to hold you to the ordinance only.
does the city have any requirements attached to redevelopment in the town of Passaic?
So bear with us just a moment, please.
I seem to recall,
I need you to wait a moment, please, Mr. Wolf. We were not being encouraging on your time. Once again, it was the city clerk's fault. Mr. Wolf.
thank
Floor
you.
is yours.
Does the city have any requirements attached to development in Passaic like this? For example, I remember seeing somewhere that the city requires a tenant's lounge in the buildings, storage in the buildings. The reason why I'm asking is because I don't see by the planning board meetings any variances being
Mr. Wolf, I'm
given.
going to interrupt you, and not pleasantly so. I need you to speak to the ordinance, not to other buildings or other
Does the
functions.
city have any requirements attached to these development plans that require certain amenities and space and allocations for the tenants?
Once again, please, sir, I'm sorry.
Does the city have any requirements that redevelopers must include in their buildings that are under approval for redevelopment?
I'll take that issue on this level, not on a higher level, and that is specifically Mr. Fernandez. On the question regarding this ordinance,
Yes, it does.
Does a developer need a variance if they do not provide those requirements in the building?
Yes. If there's any deviation from the plan that is of a bulk standard, it can be granted by the planning board. If it is a use standard, like under the municipal land use law, 4055:70-D1234556, then it has to come
could you
back to
repeat
this
that again,
council.
please?
So the D variance is use variance, D2 is expansion of a non-conforming use, D3 is conditional use, D4 is floor area ratio, D5 is density, and D6 is height. If they exceed any of those to the point that it triggers one of those six, it has to come back to this board, this council, for an amendment of the plan. The planning board has no authority to grant that waiver. But if it's de minimis waivers like setbacks or parking standards or open space standards, they're allowed to evaluate and decide if, to their satisfaction, the reply from the applicant is sufficient.
Do they need approval, do they need a vote if they don't want to give tenant lounges and storage? Do they need a variance for that?
Let me check what the code says on that, but for example, it says that you have to have at least 10,000 square feet of community space for the individuals. Let's see. And the reason I have to is because some have it, some of them have it, some do not.
19.
40 units or larger should incorporate approximately 10,000 square feet, have a wellness center, business center, concierge center, something of that, and it should be for the residents only. So, I mean, the bedrooms themselves have to have their own closet space for them to be considered bedrooms. There's a whole section on trash and recycling enclosures.
I believe that's the business administrator's analysis, Mr. Wolf.
If a project does not provide this, does it need the planning board to vote on a variance, or it can get relief before the planning board's vote?
So once this passes, it becomes law, and they can grant waivers specifically to what's on this piece of paper unless it triggers one of the D variances that we discussed before. So yes, they would need to get relief from either the council or from the planning board, depending on the type of relief they need. So the answer is yes, they need to go to either this board or the planning board to get relief.
Storage,
Excuse me, Mr. Wolf, is that effectively what they're doing?
Say that again?
Is that effectively what they're doing tonight?
No, this is the ordinance that sets that guideline that they have to comply with. So what happens after this is the applicant has to prepare a site plan that goes to the planning board. And because this is a redevelopment, it has to be consistent with this redevelopment plan. If it's inconsistent, it can extensively require an amendment from this plan, which comes to this governing body, with the exception of design standards, like the parking size. So they're well within their rights to have compact cars. If to the board's satisfaction, the applicant's professionals, bring a presentation that satisfies that, and within the law, the boards, and again, this goes for either board, but in this case, it's specifically for a planning board, can impose conditions to alleviate any impact of a variance request. So there are conditions that can be placed above and beyond this, as long as they're reasonable, to ameliorate any negative impact of that possible waiver.
storage space requirement number 14, would that need a vote from the planning board for a variance, or is that not under a variance?
Anything in this plan requires review and approval from the planning board, everything. So any number you see on the redevelopment plan requires review and approval from the planning board, unless it exceeds the authority of the planning board, which requires a D variance, then it has to come back to the city council for an amendment of the plan. The planning board doesn't have authority to grant those waivers.
Okay, thank you. I just want to let the city council know that there are redevelopment plans such as this that are asking for relief from major parts of the redevelopment plan, and they are receiving it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the council, please? There's a motion, there's a second to close public hearing. I'll hear from Councilman Mayor first. Councilman, your light is on.
Thank you, Council President. This project's pretty big. What's it?
It's over 6 acres. It's a huge site.
The 50% workforce units shall be allocated to households owning 60 to 75% of AMA. Really speaks to me. It's pretty cool. I just have a few questions on. I see a lot about the history of the census and what percentages renter occupied housing units get for parking now. Do we know what mix of apartment sizes or apartment unit sizes are going to be in this property?
No, because this is the guide. So until they submit a plan, it's only a concept and an idea. But what I can tell you is that due to the changes in the state of New Jersey's fair housing program, specifically the Uniform Housing Affordability Controls, UHAC, we've put minimum, which I'm very excited for, minimum unit sizes within it. So because that passed, we're allowed to do that now. So there will be no more of those undersized, tiny little apartments for affordable individuals that are much smaller than the rest of the building. So we're very excited about that. This is one of the first redevelopment plans that we were able to add it because the law just passed, maybe 6 months ago or so.
So you led me to one of my next questions. I'll skip to it. These apartment sizes are minimum set by the state, or these are?
Yeah, so yes, it's in the state Uniform Housing Affordability Controls for affordable housing. So those are the minimum standards.
Is there any correlation in the census between the apartment size, not the amount of bedrooms to the parking, or there's no such correlation?
There is no such correlation. The census doesn't correlate that. The census, what it does is So it's impossible for them to correlate exact unit square footage. So it's approximates and averages, but they tell you, for example, what a census tract, depending on the type of housing unit, what the parking ownership is of those units. So that's what you see. Those are the numbers you see before you.
On page 4?
That's
those
because I
percentages.
just shut it down. Let me go back to page 4. Yeah, so at the bottom there, that's what you see. So what the census does, it breaks it down. If you're renting it, right? If you're a renter, because that's what these units are, they would be rental units.
So this is a general census, not based on the Passaic apartment size. This is in a general state.
It's general, well, no, it's to our census tract. So
Specific-
basically, this number you see here is for the census tract that this specific property applies to. So no, this is not general. This is what the census, when they did the census in Passaic, this is what this census tract came out with based on their review.
So based on that, we have a no vehicle available on 375 for 29.3% of the units. There's other things taken into consideration on the apartments for size, which isn't included. We have the amount of units, but
So these are all units. So they took into account the average of all units and that census tract. And this is what the census came out with based on that
that's
tract.
assumption that we're replacing what we have with what we have. That's not assumption that
No,
there's
there's no
we're not-
assumption of replacement at all. This is just telling you, this is what we have, right? So in that area, the car ownership, right, of one vehicle or no vehicle is over, what is that, 60, 78, 79%. So 79% of all these units, right, are one car or less. So when you're coming up with a parking standard, you need to use some data, right? So we use the data that we have that's provided by the census, plus data of actual units that have been built in the area. And we take into account buses, busing, and mass transit. And I could tell you that in front of this building specifically, it's one of the, which I found very interesting when I spoke to New Jersey Transit, one of the busiest bus stops that they have in their system usage-wise. So this is just to get a gauge so you understand kind of where the standards came in. But I can also tell you that the planning board doesn't like, and this council, for example, also doesn't like to see for 2 bedrooms to be less than 1.5. So that's why it's at 1.5, irrespective of what the census comes up with.
which brings me to my next question.
See, I'm with you.
If you have 100 studios or 1 bedrooms, you need to have 7, what is it? You have 100 1 bedrooms and 100 2 bedrooms. You end up with a wash. You end up with 225 parking spots based on the 0.75 and the 1.5.
Okay.
You go down to 50 2 bedrooms and 100 1 bedrooms. You're now at I think it's a wash of 150 to 150. You go to 25 2 bedrooms, and you have 100 1 bedrooms. You're now below the minimum of 1 parking spot per unit, and you can get away with just 1 parking spot per unit. So there's really no difference between building 100 1-bedroom units, 50 2-bedroom units, versus 100 1-bedroom units and 25 2-bedroom units. It's the same. They're going to end up with the same amount of parking.
Based on the requirement, but I can also tell you, if you look at our minimum requirements, the maximum studio 1-bedroom mix is 20%.
Okay.
Because we have, the city of Passaic has a larger family size, no matter what census tract, than the national average, which means we need family housing, not just single and studio apartments. Hence why we have a minimum, there's a maximum requirement of one in bedrooms and studios, and then there's no limit on 2 bedrooms, and then there's a limit on 3 to 4s because of the parking. So everything kind of interplays with each other to make sure there's a balance within the plan.
So just to repeat what you're saying the other way, is 80% of this is at a minimum of 1.5 parking units per 1.5 parking
Or
spaces.
two, depending on
Or
the
two,
type of
but at a
unit.
minimum 1.5. Okay. And a last question. The filling up the space, is there any requirement at any point for them to fill up the footprint that they're getting redeveloped for? Or they can hold on for something later and say, they come back to us with additional units for additional variances for additional ordinance?
So an applicant can always request, right? So within the law, you're allowed to request. So an applicant can request changes, amendments to be added into a plan. That's normal. The question is, what consideration do you give each one of those requests? And also within the law, it's on a case-by-case basis. So not every project is the same, and not every project should be evaluated the same way. You can't paint land use with a broad brush as much as sometimes we'd like to.
Okay, so for this specific ordinance, would it be us, the council? Would it be us, the council, or would it be the planning board that sees the final layout for this project, whatever they come back with, and see whether they're filled up the entire redevelopment or there was left some for later?
That would be the planning board when the plan is prepared, right? So no one sees it until the site plan is prepared. What this does is it allows a guide for that site plan to be prepared. So they prepare it however they see fit as a developer, and then they bring it to the planning board, and then the planning board evaluates it on its own merit off of this plan.
Okay, so hypothetically,
I don't like hypotheticals, but all right, we'll work on them.
hypothetically, they come in with apartment sizes on the site plan that are 10% bigger
Yes.
than these apartments.
Yeah.
It's presented to the planning board, everything is approved. They go to construction of the city, now the apartments are 10% smaller, reserving space for some other development later on.
So it depends. It depends on the plan. So I kind of know what you're getting at because I'm familiar with the comparisons. This plan specifically, that's why I'm so happy that the state passed the regulation, specifically has minimum bedroom sizes. That is a requirement of this plan. If anyone comes in with a plan to construction that is less than the plan requirements, it needs a waiver, it needs a variance. It has to come back to the planning board. And if they say they don't like it, and they say, well, I don't want to have this 550 square foot studio, I want it to be 400, right? Then that requires an amendment to this plan, which the planning board can't do, and this board would then have to, this governing body would then have to say, yes, we're going to let the 400 go. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but let me rephrase the question, or let me try. They come in with higher numbers than the minimums. They come in 20% higher on the minimums. These apartments are huge on the plan. They're approved for this. They end up building that amount of units, but with the minimum amounts when they submit to construction. So they have 20% left over because they saved it for a later date.
So then they're in jeopardy of not getting anything approved in the future. That's what happens, right? Because the plan is also, so there's many things that interplay. So for example, this maximizes the number of units, right? So if they exceed that number of units, that requires an amendment from the governing body, right? And then the question becomes, we passed the redevelopment plan, right? The redevelopment plan was conducted and completed, right? Is there still a need for redevelopment, right? Because under the local housing redevelopment law, right? Once the development is completed and there's changes that want to be to that completed project, then there has to be a termination if you're still going to use the local housing redevelopment law, or you're going to remove it from the local housing redevelopment law, then requiring that applicant to go to the planning or zoning board, depending on what the relief is requested, to get relief. But it would be from the underlying zoning ordinance, no longer from the redevelopment. So this is a complex question you're asking. There's multiple layers, but that is typically what would happen. If the council, let's say they did that, right? This applicant came in, they did it. We have 490 units, and they built them very small, and half of the building is vacant, right? And now they say, well, you know what? I got this half a vacant building. I want to go back, and I want to build it. So they would have to come back here, because remember, yes, here to this, and say, I need another 100 units because I didn't build half of it. Then the question is, why the hell didn't you build half of it? Right? Like that you're a developer, you got approved for these 400 units. That's what the governing body, the planning board, because remember, this went to the planning board for consistency with the master plan, right? And then they have to submit a site plan also to the planning board. So what happens is they went through a whole process, and now they want to do the whole process again. So the reason is there a need? Because when you read the local housing redevelopment law, there has to be a need. So this,
Excuse me for a moment. Isn't there a need inherent in this issue overall throughout the state?
there is, but remember what happened.
And buttressed by the governor's numerous statements in terms of more housing must be built.
Right, so then that would be a consideration that the governing body would have to attain. So for example, if a project is coming in that has no affordable housing, and now the project is proposing affordable housing, that is something to consider based on what you just said, Council President, right? Because the state is looking for housing specifically for families that fall within a certain income level. So that is a consideration that you would give. So for example, this one has not only affordable housing, it has workforce. This plan has all the bells and whistles, and it also reflects the state's new approach, because I went in there and I specifically took out sections of the Uniform Housing Affordability Controls statute of the state to include as part of this plan, which we didn't have the chance to do again. And I think we're all clear what the mayor's directive has been. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, Mayor, but we're talking about the gap of those working residents that still can't afford the market rate, but make too much for the affordable. That's why you got workforce housing. Then those that need it for affordable housing, all mixed with market rate incomes, because that is not just within the state of New Jersey, but statewide, nationwide, the approach for development and integrating uses, because the old affordable housing complexes of the 40s and 50s, clearly that concentration didn't work. So the diversity of uses. But more directly to your point, Council President, if this was already done, it takes a whole different life, right? Once they have availed themselves of the local housing redevelopment law and they've completed the project, then the question is, well, is there a need for this amendment, right? Is the project completed? Is there a need? What is the difference between what was presented that met all the guidelines and now what they're proposing now? So that's why, to your point, Council President, if they're looking to add affordable housing, if they're looking to add workforce housing, things that make a significant difference showing there's still a need, then that's something to consider. If it's just, I'm coming in with, an additional market rate units, then what's the reason? What's the rationale for the amendment? Right? That's from a planning perspective. But again, I'm giving you general notes because every project is a little different and you got to evaluate them differently. You may look at this and say, you know what? I wish we would have done this, that, or the other thing, and then you make the amendment, or something changes in the state, or.
Thank you.
Mr. Fernandez, if I can ask a question, and it's been troubling me for over a year. When we speak about low, moderate, and workforce, those are different levels, right? And it's based upon what the federal mean average is.
Yeah, so it's based on a region. So they put Passaic in a region with like Bergen County and Sussex is in the region to balance out a minimum rental payment and a income limit, okay? To set a baseline of what those limits are, so that when somebody comes, we know what number to look for, so that we can establish whether they're moderate, low, or workforce.
So how does one make sure that there is a blend? Isn't the purpose is that there be a blend?
Yeah, so
And
there's
is it-
certain requirements, depending on, so because we're a HUD entitlement city, our requirements, we follow HUD requirements because that's where our funding sources come from. So we put that into the plans, which requires after a certain number of units that a percentage be moderate, a percentage be low, and very low. There's like a range that they have. So if you have, let's say, 13 units, a portion of those 13 units have to hit, one of those income limits.
So the criteria for renting one of these apartments has to do with your income versus the federal standards.
Correct. And then your income to expense ratio. So affordable housing, the definition of affordable housing is 80% of median income or below, but a maximum household expense of 30 to 35%.
Okay, this is what I wanted to understand better.
Yes.
So how does that work essentially on a practical basis? I go to rent an apartment with my wife and family. I make too much, I don't qualify. I make too little, I don't qualify. Is that correct?
Yes, depending on the unit, right? So that's why the regulations require a range of incomes.
Does it dictate to us how many of each?
So remember, this dictates minimums. You can always exceed the minimums. If you say that, really in the city of Passaic, the range, we have more of a greater need at 30 to 40% of AMI, right? Then you can say that X percent of these affordable units have to be, 30, 40% of AMI, which exceeds the federal minimum.
I've always been told that Passaic is unfairly placed in this analysis because income levels in Bergen, which were a part of that group, as you stated, are just that much higher than they are in Passaic, and thus hurting Passaic residents. Would you agree with that?
I don't know if I'd say that because I look at census tracts specifically to track that down. And when we do our numbers, we look at those census tracts. So yes, there is a skew, but there's a skew from the higher income limits within one municipality and one section of that municipality to another. So that is why they also threw in Sussex, right? So when you look at, well, how did Sussex get into the Passaic Bergen region, right? That is to balance the income levels because sections of Sussex are way lower, right? So it tries to create a balance. So the regional approach is trying to create a balance. So it's so that the moderate income is not too low and the low income isn't too high, I guess is the best way to do it. But yes, so if you're looking just at Bergen County, it's going to skew it. But when you look at it as a region, it balances itself out.
And there are rules and regulations in terms of same-sex children receiving their own bedrooms that you can't.
That's correct. That's under the multiple dwelling and tenant rights.
So if I have two bedrooms, I mean, can my wife and I sleep on the couch in the living room as long as each of the two boys and two girls that I have their own bedrooms?
So now you're getting into like construction code and what's permissible as a habitable space, right? So there are certain locations that are uninhabitable in an apartment. So you can't sleep in the bathroom, you can't sleep in the kitchen, right? But a living room is a habitable space. Now, that being said, in the code, a bedroom, you can't cross one bedroom to get to another bedroom and say you got two bedrooms. That's only one bedroom. right? So that could kind of hinder that scenario, right? But it's hard because you got to see a layout of the unit and all of that. So no, and then there's, on top of that, there's overcrowding requirements. So there's a certain number of individuals that can live in an apartment based on their square footage. So that can exceed that, which then would require a bigger unit. So there's there's a whole slew of regulations from different.
As well as relationships and to be familiar with relationship amongst all the people living in the apartments as well.
Yes. So I started my career doing overcrowding and illegal housing. So I'm very familiar. That's why I know the code, the way I know the code.
Councilman Monk, is that your line?
Yes, thank you. First of all, Council President, just to address what you were harping on regarding the AMIs, the whole thing is really skewed, especially when you bring in so many different counties. So, what should be happening is that every zip code should really have its own AMIs, because what happens is, many times, you could have the 70, 80% of AMI could actually be your market rent. In other words, let's say you want to charge $3,000 for an apartment, right? Because the AMI might be very high in the area, so your 80% might be exactly $3,000. So when you offer affordable housing, it's from a developer's perspective, he's not really giving up anything because his market rents fit into that 80% box to begin with. So for a developer where the AMI is relatively high, it works, on paper it looks very nice, 75%, 80% of the AMI, and, it definitely helps people if they could afford it, right? But it's good for a developer because he's not really giving up anything by saying, hey, I'll give 50% of my units at 75, 80% of the AMI, whatever it is, So, yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it actually works many times in favor of a developer that makes the deal work. He's not really discounting his rents at all by doing affordable housing.
And I wonder why they fight tooth and nail not to do it then, right? Because they come in here fighting tooth and nail that they don't want to build any affordable housing, or let's put them all in the same building. So I've been doing this for quite some time. And I can tell you that those are rare instances depending on the market. One of the main reasons that you see this regional is because there's a regional need. And it's to try to get more affordable housing, quite frankly, in more affluent counties. That is why they're doing it. So one of the things that happens with affordable housing in this state is that we put out numbers for municipalities. So we're not one of those because we meet our fair share of affordable housing. So we want to expand it to our sister cities. So what happens is they're so focused on a number and meeting a number that they don't understand that this is an average of a regional need, so that Passaic doesn't get all of them, right? So that Patterson doesn't get all of them, so that other municipalities have to provide their fair share of affordable housing. In the city of Passaic, which we've made very clear, right, Mayor, is we want to provide for our residents to not displace them, but also keep the individuals that may have higher education, that may get a better finances to stay here, right? And then diversify the incomes within units to make them not only more affordable, but more attractive and change really the economy of the area, right? So that concentration of either side is no good. Okay, that's clear. Because what happens is if you go too low, then the economy tanks and you're providing services hand over fist. If it's too high, they are then so restrictive, they let no one else that doesn't look exactly like them in their section, right? So that is the two extremes. And what we've always talked about, right, Mayor, has been balance. We want to provide balance as best we can, because like you're saying, Councilman Monk, there's also the market, there's the economy, there's inflation, there's the cost of construction, right? Which then skews all of that. And what we're trying to do here with all the ordinances that the mayor has proposed and the council has passed is to provide a level of protection for those individuals, but also not deter individuals from investing within the municipality. And as we've said throughout all of, what do we call them, the stabilization of the market in Passaic, it's to provide that balance.
So I understand that they come in, no one wants to, they fight in terms of farm.
A little bit louder.
I'm sorry. The reason why they fight the affordable piece is because no one wants a property we have restrictions where in case the market does start flying, you don't want to be restricted for a refinance purpose or for a sale, right? You want an institutional buyer to come pick up 600 units, right? Without, you don't have restrictions. It's only going to hurt you.
Yeah, so if I could just elaborate for the public and for the council members that may not know. So what happens is, because this is a requirement, there has to be a deed restriction that goes with the land that these units for at least 20 years in the city of Passaic have to remain affordable. And the increases can only be guided by those federal increases on income and rental market. So that's what we're talking about when we're having a discussion on refinancing and having restrictions on it, because it is a deed restriction so that if the market does blow up, right, which we want it to, we don't displace individuals that are living in these apartments. So that's why those restrictions exist.
Why, like, I understand, like, you have a development of 20, 30, 50 units. And I understand that this plan requires 50 dwellings or more to have a traffic study, a drainage study, a sanitary sewer system. Why not a school impact of what it will do on the school? I mean, you're not talking about 50 units, you're talking about 600, how many units are you talking about, 400?
Yeah, it depends. It's a maximum here, but they can come in below that. We don't know what the number is. They can't go above it.
490?
Yeah. So
Why isn't that such a large project something of concern?
so what happens is the reason is because there's already a study that everybody uses. It came from out of Rutgers. And that's any professional that comes before the board that they talk about school children is going to refer to that study. And they base it on an average and estimate that Rutgers came out with, several years back. And that's been the norm for professionals. So you're really requesting it is only like putting it in here. It's only going to get you the regurgitation of that study.
So where is it?
So usually it's a question that's asked when they're at the planning board, and then their professionals have to answer it. It's no different than, having them justify their parking requirement.
Should that be part of the impact study then? And especially if the data is available.
So
Part of that impact study?
it could be. It's just not our code. Our code has never required that, so we don't put it in there. This would be the first time. I mean, if you wanted it, I don't think it's a major change to add that as a child impact study to this specifically. But I can tell you that in units that are 50 or greater, that's a conversation that's had, and the planning board can, discuss those findings with those individuals.
But why, if it's not part of the plan, it's not a required impact study as traffic, drainage, and sewer is, why would the planning board even have to take it into account?
They can or they cannot. So what happens is the reason that it's typically not, so let's start with that, is because that's a moving target, right? It's a moving target. You don't know how many children are actually going to be there or not, right? You can have estimates based on what the census data is, based on family size. You can look at, you can make estimates based on the unit mix. How many are 1 bedrooms? How many are 2 bedrooms? How many are 3 bedrooms? But as an example, so I could tell you that the rule of thumb is if it's 3 or 4, guaranteed. Is guaranteed. If it's studios and 1 bedrooms, Not really, unless they're overcrowding the apartment. And then your one and twos, I mean, your two, specifically your two bedrooms, the majority maybe, but not all of them, because you may have a couple that's a professional that hasn't started their life yet that wants to have children. So, yeah, but is that I'm telling you, there's a study out there, and these are conversations that planning boards are having. We've just never put it in a plan.
In all fairness, parking's a moving target too.
Yeah, but parking, right, it is a moving target, but it's not like children are a moving target, because it could be one child, two child. You don't know the size of the family size. So similarly to parking, right? And remember, we're not asking for a parking study. We're asking for a traffic study. On the parking, right, we're using our best guess based on census data on what the number of units and historically what the appetite for any of the boards have been. So like I said, originally in certain areas of town that have a lot of mass transit, it used to be 2 bedrooms, 1-to-1 when we first started doing that. There's no longer an appetite for the 1-to-1. It has to be 1.5. So then those changes were made based on, what we've seen, right? So I would say that parking is less of a moving target than the number of children in the classroom, because there's so many. And for example, how many of them go to public schools? How many of them go to private schools, right? Like there's how many of them are all in kindergarten? How many? So there's many, many more layers than if I own 1 car or 2 cars, right? So, because one of the issues that you look at when you're looking at this is impact on the school system, right? Why do you want to know how many kids people have, right? The reason is for the impact, let's say, on the school system. Well, then the idea is, well, how many of them are going to use the school system? How many of them are actually going to be in the same grade? Thank you. And then the biggest thing that is evaluated is, well, what about enrollment, right? In school enrollment, and the mayor was kind enough to remind me that our enrollment in the city of Passaic has gone down by over 4,000 students in our local public school system, right? So in actuality, when things like that happen, you actually want to promote having more children, because you don't want to close doors and you don't want to fire teachers and staff. That happens, right? So those are all considerations that one takes into place when they're evaluating that. But those are questions that are asked by board members. And that's why typically you don't have it in this, like a sewer system, the impact of the sewer system, right? DEP and their stormwater regulations literally has gallonage per unit per day, peak hours. It's given to us. You can do the math, right? And you know if the impact requires the board, for example, to say, well, you need to change this linear footage in front of your building as a new sewer section because of the impact on it. Right? That's a condition they can place to alleviate that requirement, right? Traffic. If the traffic study, there's very specific calculations. How many trips per hour at what time come out of a building per unit? It's already there. Just do the math. Engineers make a lot of money doing that, right? So then the question becomes, is that too much for the street to handle, or is there a condition that could be placed? For example, the planning board, I know for many, many times I'm looking at Councilwoman Colon Montañez, has required speed bumps coming out of driveways from buildings to slow down the traffic onto the roadway, or requiring flashing lights, or stop signs, or requiring street traffic lights in intersections that are affected by that property, right? But that's all, there's actual numbers and formulas that are used for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Under the general administrative provisions, it states,
What, can you just tell me the page in a second?
page 8, the planning board may grant exceptions or waivers from design standards from the requirements for the site plan or subdivision approval as may be reasonable and within the general purpose and intent of the provisions for site plan review or subdivision approval within this plan. I'm going to skip a few sentences here. No deviations may be granted under the terms of this section unless such deviations can be granted without resulting in substantial detriment to the public good and will not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the redevelopment plan.
Yes.
Who decides what's substantial and what's not substantial?
The board members that are entrusted with making that waiver, that decision. This is directly from the municipal land use law.
I'm just trying to, as this is a follow-up from our meeting from our last meeting. In other words, if a plan calls for 600 parking spots,
Mhm.
and the board decides, well, we cut that in half, it's not such a substantial change, that the board could decide. You're saying any change the board makes is considered a change that's a deviation that's not substantial, does not substantially impact or the intent of the redevelopment.
So that's a generalization of the statement, and it's general on purpose because they want to give flexibility to the boards to make decisions, right? And that's any board. This language is in every code, and it's in the state of New Jersey. So there are proofs that are required on the record through the municipal land use law to prove if there's substantial detriment or not. And that comes by the presentation of the professionals of the applicant to prove that. If they prove that to the satisfaction of the board, then they can get granted the waiver. Now, there's also an appeal process. There's 45 days after the action of any board that you can appeal their determination. I hate to say it, but I've seen cases where governing bodies have sued their zoning boards and their planning boards, right? For, some of their actions, right? Some won, some lost, but the law is set up that way for that purpose.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious what that language meant.
Yeah, so there's a specific legal meaning for it that has to be presented by the applicant to show that. So like when I do presentations for applicants, well, not that I haven't done one in a million years, but I have to compare the project to the plan, to the master plan, to the code, to the municipal land use law, the purposes of the municipal land use law. And those are how you establish substantial consistency and limited impairment of the intent and purpose of the redevelopment plan.
Okay. There's under this plan, right? It calls for at least 50% of the units to. There's basically a few different provisions. There's the 20%, which we have of required of affordable units, right? 70%, 80% below it, and 20% workforce, which is 60 to 120% of AMI. And then in addition, it says no less than 50% of the workforce units shall be allocated to households earning 60 to 75%.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So workforce housing, as defined, is 60% to 120%. So remember your comment that, to me, as a developer, it's market rate, right? So when you're hitting the 120% of AMI, you're much closer to market, right? So what this says is you can't avail yourself of the workforce housing requirement by making them all 100, 120. Half of them have to be between the 60 and 75. Just to bring you back to some conversations that the mayor's had in this specific council about meeting that gap of those individuals that are hardworking families that get left out. And we wanted to make sure that with such a large project, right, we were able to cross all the T's and dot all the I's of everything. This is a culmination of all those regulations that the mayor has proposed and this council has voted on in one plan.
Yeah, so I just, for clarity, So like you have the affordable units, which is 80% below AMI. So let's say AMI, just for round the numbers, AMI is $100,000. Okay, AMI.
Do you want the exact numbers? I mean, I could look it up. It'll
I
take me a minute.
just want to get this. Let's say AMI is $100,000. Okay, so 80% affordable means they have to be earning $80,000 or less.
Yes, and
Is
it
that
depends
correct?
on family size, but I'm following you.
Okay.
I like the easy math.
Okay. So now the workforce house units is 60 to 120% of AMI.
Yes.
So 120% of AMI, which means is someone that's making $120,000.
Yes.
So how is that? What defines that workforce? If someone's making $120,000, what defines workforce that he qualifies for these 20 workforce units?
The AMI.
But he's making over AMI.
Right, so it goes back to your point about the region and the, area and the different counties and the whole thing, right? So,
I'm sorry, it's just, and I'm interested, but Councilman, you said he is making, referring to an individual, but
I meant to.
workforce could be they.
Yeah, it could be that. Yeah, we combine.
right, so the AMI is based on family size as well, right? So if you're a family of 4 in the city of Passaic, then you're looking at the 95,000 AMI, but that's a family of 4.
Where I'm going with this is that if we're looking to make housing affordable, and that 70 units or 20, right, to 15%, whatever it is, by allowing some of the units to go over 100%, then it's not really someone that needs financial help. Right?
And children in the family. So if you look at a couple, and let's say you have a husband and a wife, and 3 children, 2 children, 120 isn't the same as the individual professional making 120.
Which wouldn't qualify. They would be making too much. They would be making
That's why it's
too much
based on
money.
the numbers.
Right. So one single person under AMI in the city of Passaic, right? 120,000 for a single person under the workforce would be making too much money.
How does one ensure that there is economic diversity?
By this. Exactly. To answer your question, what we're doing right now, the discussions we're currently having, percentages of affordable housing that ranges anywhere from 30% of AMI to 80%, and workforce housing that ranges from 60% to 120% of AMI.
So everyone who applies for an apartment there needs to be diversity of those incomes. You can't have 5 people earning the lowest amount and
Right.
1 person the most.
Right. And there has to be that flexibility as well, because one thing we all know is that banks currently are very fickle. And
They're not fickle at all.
no, they don't want to loan anything to anybody unless it's $1 million, like unless they know they're getting paid back. So what happens is you have to have that flexibility to make sure it's fundable. So one of the worst things, and I can tell you from experience that has even happened in Passaic, is there are programs where the state requirement to meet the grant doesn't match up with the underwriting of the bank. And we've had nightmares of reconciling the underwriting of the bank with the grant money that they were giving us from these different agencies.
Yep.
So those are things that we work through.
Also an expectation of the
Councilman,
range.
Right, expectation of the range.
Yeah, just I know.
There's a range, and sometimes we see the higher end of the range when we're talking about the AMI. And if you're thinking 120%, the likelihood that everyone who's going to be going in there is at that higher range is low. And for those who are listening, AMI online would be area medium income. I know we throw around these acronyms. We're privy to the info. Sometimes the lay people don't.
and income is requested, proof of income is requested how often?
So it has to start when the rental is given, and it really ranges depending on if there's funding sources or not that goes into the affordable housing. So one of the things we're blessed with here in the city of Passaic is we do get an allocation from HUD, specifically home funds, and if they avail themselves of that, there's a whole list of other requirements, but they have to provide proof at any time and keep records of that proof as they they register their tenants, because the city of Passaic also has a tenant registration requirement that has to reconcile all those requirements. And they have to provide us with a deed restriction so that at any time, they can be audited. We ask for audited financials. Do they get a pilot? Do they not get a pilot? So the timing, the frequency of the timing is really dependent on all the other things, but it happens at least annually. It should happen at least annually.
Thank you. Councilman Mayor?
Just the affordable, what percentage of AMI is it?
It's 80% or below.
80%. Thanks. Also, you mentioned this 20-year deed restriction. When we're doing pilots, or, I'll say this. There's no pilot on. I'll say it.
I know we kind of went off.
Yeah.
We went off the ordinance, but I think it was a very good conversation to have. I'm happy to have it.
I allowed it because frankly, I think that all of the council members learned quite a bit, which will hopefully assist us in doing even better jobs. Are there any other questions?
You just,
2523.
yeah, just from following up another thing that we had asked for. In
Yes.
terms of, how meaningful these plans are that the council sends.
So at our last meeting, Councilman Monk had requested, and Council President, you had asked us to prepare a report of the last 20 redevelopment applications to the planning board and the parking variances that were required. So we took the last 20 that ranged from 2026 to 2021. Right? Out of those 20, 14 of them did not require a parking variance. They complied. One of them required one parking variance. Two of them required two parking variances. One required 3 parking spots, but it ended with a 1-to-1 ratio. So even though they got 3 parking space variance, each unit got a parking space. So it wasn't like a unit was left out. Then there were 2 outliers. One was 5 units, one was 7. One was 5 parking spaces, one was 7 parking spaces. The one that is 7 parking spaces was from 3 years ago, so I don't remember. But the one for 5 parking spaces, which was just last year, and that was on Main Avenue. So as the council may recall, that on Main Avenue, we're actually trying to have residential parking permits and opening up the center islands and the parking deck for residential parking permits. So developers could come in and offer beyond their parking requirement by residential parking spaces. So for example, and Councilwoman, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there was one of them where you required that the applicant would have to provide their parking spaces, but also a residential parking permit for every single car that comes up on their leases. So if all of a sudden you added a car not to exceed their full amount, they would have to purchase at their expense a parking pass for the residents of that unit.
Is it additional to the pilot or in lieu?
Additional to the pilot. That is a justification to grant the variance. Remember, there's a misnomer, and all developers know this already because I've said it to them blue in the face. A pilot does not apply until after the case has been adjudicated. There is no, I pay you for the parking spot, so I don't have to provide it. That doesn't exist here. They have to get the variance. So even though this, and that's a great point. So even though this applicant got a 5 parking spot variance, even that the board required them to pay for the residential parking permit, the fact they got the variance still owes us a pilot, above and beyond all of that. So those are the numbers for the last 20. So 14 of them did not require one. There was really only 2, like I said, that were outliers, one for 5, one for 7. But I could tell you that the one for 5, which was on Main and Jefferson, there's things to take into account was the access to public transit, the availability of public parking, the availability of residential parking permits. And, if that were to be granted, then the pilot comes separate and apart, which this council may recall, those payments of the pilot was what was used as the down payment for the parking deck.
Okay, so you mentioned there's, one of them needed one variance, two of them needed two variances. Two variances means two spots?
Two spots. Everything we're talking about is per spot.
Everything is number of spots.
So basically, 14 of them didn't need any of it. One of them needed one spot. Two of them needed two spot. One of them needed three spots, but it gave a 1-to-1 ratio, so every unit got one. Then you had one on Main Avenue that I explained, and then the one for 7, it's an older case, but they did have a 1-to-1. So even though they were 7 spaces short, it was 24 units, and they provided 24 parking spaces.
Right, I saw,
So they
But-
also gave a 1-to-1. Is that me?
We don't know which mic.
I must shut off.
Yeah, so now I just read the notes. Even the 7 was 24 units, 24 parking spaces. So even though they received a variance, each unit had a parking space.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that research. Appreciate it. Okay. I mean, this is a great project. I just want to, Councilor, I think it's an amazing project to take literally a corner of the city. And it already started, right, with Market Street. You have some new stuff that that has been developed there, right? And a few new buildings there. So it's really going to transform that whole area in the downtown area. So
Yeah, to that point, the mayor had asked me to look at it so that, and express to the council, this is a holistic approach.
Yeah.
This is right across the street from Big Apple West. Big Apple West is right across the street from Factory 220, which is all commercial, from it. Then it's, walking distance from 8th Street, which has the hundreds of thousands of square feet of industrial space. So we're connecting people to jobs, we're connecting people to transportation, we're connecting people to businesses, local businesses. This is what redevelopment is all about. I'm very proud to say that I did, with the council's permission, if you want, I could share you a little slideshow that shows it. If you want to see it real quick.
How quick is quick?
2 seconds, it's just pictures. I'll show you real fast.
Madam Clerk, can you give this to the council president?
Here it is. All right, Madam Clerk, can I share?
Yes, I made you co-host.
Okay. Give me 1 second. These are not really made for these computers, so it's loading. Here it is. Okay. Oh my God, it took me, am I still in the Zoom?
Yes.
You're gonna have to help me out here, because this thing just disappeared on me. I don't know. Oh, here it is. Okay. I got it, because it's on a web interface. Let me share. Here we go. All right. Yeah, can everybody see that now?
Yes.
There we go. All right. See, I figured it out. Took me a minute, but I got it. Okay. So this is the One Market Street application. Let me see. Can I do a full screen on this? Why is this one so different to navigate? I don't understand. Okay. I just want to make it full screen. And this thing doesn't. Oh, there we go. All right, here we go. There you go. It takes a minute. All right. So this is the location. As you can see, it's surrounded by the East Side redevelopment plan, which is the yellow, and then the burgundy or red is the Market Street redevelopment plan. So this is literally at the heart of the entrance to our redevelopment area, this site. It's located surrounded by a multitude of projects. You have the residential projects, the lofts that were converted, Factory 220 that was done, and the 127 South, which is almost completed. Along those lines, you have A Street, and you can't forget Jefferson Street, which was the old Panasote site. It's over 7 acres. And these are all logistic and industrial centers which employ hundreds of individuals that are all within walking distance to this redevelopment plan that's being proposed. Not to mention that these are, again, the census numbers, just so you can see the difference between 2010, when we used to do a 1-to-1, to now in 2026, where we do a 1.5 parking spaces because the average household size has gone up by 0.2, right? So you see, we use data as we approach that. So one of the biggest things to note is the diversity in uses, right? The fact that you have all these industrial centers, and these are just the highlights of redevelopment. This isn't even everything that's in that area. These are just the highlighted redevelopment areas, as well as all the construction that's going on, specifically Factory 220, which I'm happy to report that we're working on a marketplace, the Sabor de Passaic, right? The 220 experience, which will bring small businesses into an area to provide their different food options within this Factory 220 to fill it up, which provides more jobs, and it provides amenities to all these workers and residents in the area, as well as possibly a boutique hotel. So if people want to come visit people that live in that area, they're able to come in and do that. So the reason and purpose for this is to show you where this project is and why the proposal is what the proposal is, and why we presented it to you in the way that we did, because this is the gateway. So if you look at it, this is when you come in off of the highway, you make the right. This is the first thing you see when you cross over Route 21. So it's a very impactful, and like Councilman Monk says, would change that downtown area, and fit very nicely, and supplement all the other development and uses that are in the area. And I think that is it. I will now stop sharing. There you go. That was quick, right, Mr. President? Did it as fast as I could.
Are you saying to me it's over?
It's over.
Okay.
I'll move to close public portion.
I have a motion and a second to close public portion already.
Yep.
We can, but thank you, Councilman. Roll call, please.
Councilman Monk,
Yes.
Councilman Love,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mello,
Yes.
Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Garcia,
Yes.
Councilwoman Colon Montañez,
Yes.
and Council President Scher.
Yes, thank you. On the ordinance, please, is there a motion to accept?
Move it.
Second.
Motion and second to accept.
Councilman Monk,
Yes.
Councilman Love,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mello,
Yes.
Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Garcia,
Yes.
Councilwoman Colon Montañez,
Yes.
and Council President Scher.
Yes, thank you. The ordinance has passed. Number 2, please. Proposed ordinance 2528-26, an ordinance amending the designation of restricted parking for disabled persons by New Jersey license plate number. Is there a motion, please, to open public hearing?
Yes.
Motion
Second.
and second. Roll call, please.
Councilman Monk,
Yes.
Councilman Love, Councilwoman Mello,
Yes.
Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Garcia,
Yes.
Councilwoman Colon Montañez,
Yes, Leslie.
Yes.
and Council President Scher.
Yes, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, the council will be deliberating proposed ordinance 2528-26. Is there anyone who'd like to address the council on this item and this item only? Showing no hand, excuse me. Yes, sir, this is on the ordinance.
I know the hour's late. I just want to say that radio's involved. I did a random survey of reserved parking spots in Passaic.
No, sir, we
Okay.
are not on that ordinance.
I would like to let the council know.
Excuse me, sir, we have gone over that. We are now on a new ordinance.
Okay. This is for the reserved parking spaces.
This is for designation of restricted parking.
Yes, thank you. I would like to let the council president know that I did a random survey of parking spots with reserved parking. The city is not enforcing, and people's tags are expired, non-existent, but the license plate is still on the sign. I just want the council to know that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We have where are we on this? Where are we on
There's no
25?
one else you can close.
That was in terms of public hearing? Is there anyone else who would like to address the council, please, on 2528-26?
See no hands, move to close public portion.
Second.
Motion and second to close public portion.
Councilman Monk,
Yes.
Councilman Love,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mello,
Yes.
Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Garcia,
Yes.
and Council President Scher.
Yes, thank you. On the ordinance, please, is there a maker?
Second.
Councilman Monk,
Yes.
Councilman Love,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mello,
Yes.
Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Garcia,
Yes.
and Council President Scher.
Yes, thank you. That was on the ordinance?
Yes, sir.
Very good. We're up to number 3, post ordinance 2529. Why don't we take about a 5-minute break?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. It's a logical time to do it.
You have to vote on it?
No, that's one of the few powers that I actually have as council president.
Roll call, Council President. Councilman Monk,
Yes.
Councilman Love, Councilwoman Mello,
Yes.
Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Garcia,
Yes.
Councilman Colon Montañez,
Yes.
and Council President Scher.
Yes, thank you. We are now on.
Yes, I'm here, Council President.
Thank you, Council. We are on number 3, please. We're still on number 3, please. Proposed ordinance 2529-26, an ordinance authorizing the execution of an agreement for payment in lieu of taxes pilot with Spear Village Preservation Owner LLC. Is there a motion, please, to open public hearing?
Move it. Second.
Motion and second. Roll call, please.
Councilman Monk,
Yes.
Councilman Love,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mello,
Yes.
Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Garcia,
Yes.
Councilman Colon Montañez,
Yes.
and Council President Scher.
Yes, thank you. We just opened public hearing?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Councilman Monk, your light is on.
Yeah, fine, thank you. Can we get just a high level to start in terms of what this project is? I know coming in for payment in lieu of taxes, a pilot program. What is this project consist of?
So this is phase 1 of the overall rehabilitation and redesign of Spear Village. So this specific pilot would be for the rehabilitation of the 4 buildings in the rear. So these buildings are going to remain 100% affordable. Then the rest of the projects would be integrated incomes and possibly uses with commercial, but that's not what we're here for. I don't even have a site plan for the other phases. This is only for the rehabilitation. They need the pilot so they can go to NJHMFA, which is the housing mortgage. I tried to say housing and mortgage at the same time. That didn't work out well. The Housing Mortgage Finance Agency for their financing, which qualifies for the 30-year abatement that you have here. So that funding source is what triggered the 30-year abatement and the requirements of that 30-year abatement.
So, right, who owns this project right now? Who
So-
owns this?
Currently, it is the Passaic Housing Authority.
Okay, so they're selling it?
So they're making an agreement with a developer to maintain the affordable housing. So in essence, they would be owning it, and Housing Authority would be managing it, or it'd be kind of a, no, that's not how it is. So we do have the owner here. I don't know if you want to, the developer is here if you want to ask him specifically how that transfer works. So they're going to be, the property's going to be theirs. They're going to manage the property, and I think the housing authority manages the vouchers or something like that.
If the gentleman is
That's what
here,
it is. So I knew there was something like that. So yes, the housing authority manages the vouchers, but they manage the project. They have to be an urban renewal LLC nonprofit to do the HMFA financing. So then this will go to HMFA for them to get the financing, and then they can start the rehabilitation of the project.
So what,
Councilman Monk, you have the floor. Did you want to invite the gentleman to address this
yeah, I
council?
would love to in a few minutes, if you don't mind, okay? So currently, these buildings have 256 rental units.
Yes.
Okay. And currently, when this is finished, the people that are living there will still be eligible to live here?
Yes.
Or there's going to be new requirements?
No, so I mean, there's income requirements that they have to meet, but under HUD, the Housing Urban Development, it requires that there be a relocation plan and that individuals that want to come back to the units are eligible to come back to the units if they don't accept the voucher and leave. There's a whole relocation plan that has to be approved by HUD for those tenants that want to stay or come back.
Okay. Please, I would love to hear, I'm trying to, if you don't mind, I'm trying to understand what we're doing here. Right now, I know we have buildings, was it 4 buildings or 6 buildings? That are up right now.
Susan.
So you look like a great guy, you want to help Passaic. You know, first person that ever walked in here with a nice big smile. I love Passaic. I want to help. I'm doing it for free, right? So I'm really trying to understand is that I know that it says that the city of Passaic is going to earn $165,000
Yes.
a year, or 3% of income. But I also see here that the developer is going to earn $14 million in fees. So I'm trying to figure out why you should do it and not the city shouldn't do this and make the $14 million. Like, what are you bringing to the table? What are you doing? What's your vision here? Okay, that we should roll out the red carpet for you and hand you the keys to these buildings. And it's, you know, capitalism, you should make all the money. I'm sure you deserve it, plus more. But explain to me what's going on here. Like, what are we doing here?
Sure. We thank you for the opportunity to present to you, and I'm glad my smile had some effect.
Could it go so far as to give us your name, your firm?
Certainly. My name is John Cortell, and I'm the principal of Cortell Development Group. I represent a partnership with L&M Development, and together we are collaborating with the Housing Authority on the transformation of its existing assets. We are engaging in this opportunity to collaborate in part because we have a extensive track record in just this kind of partnership. We value these relationships as a device to respond and deliver for communities. So we have been long in conversation with this administration in part to understand goals set and to communicate something that works for city residents as well as future residents of the city. We, together with L&M, we are doing this work across the state, if not across the nation. And we are choosing to do this in part because there is a meaningful opportunity enabled through these programs to improve these buildings and deliver efficiently improved quality of affordable housing. We can do it faster than we can ground up new construction. We can leverage the resources created by existing in place buildings, which by themselves have residual value, to then pursue additional new construction components that will supplement the vision of a transformed gateway condition here. We take this seriously because this is a gateway into the city. And we think that these 6 buildings, there are 6 currently. The conversation that we're having, or the evaluation you're doing now, relates only to 4 in the back. The 4 in the back represent a majority of the total and are effectively agents to preserve and place the affordable housing, create and improve those buildings as long-term quality affordable housing opportunities, but also facilitate redevelopment of underutilized portions of that property, including the office structure and areas on the front on State Street, which are of visible and critical importance.
I know that you must have gone through a tremendous amount of review before you were chosen, but you shared that you're working in other municipalities in the state. Could you just share that with us? Then that's
We've been collaborating with the state on the repositioning of a meaningful project in Trenton that's across the street from the AG's office, known as Kingsbury Towers. Property was in substantial duress, and we are substantially along in a meaningful repositioning. And in that instance, a similar pilot was approved in part because the pilot resources enable a substantial rehab. So again, the goal here is to meaningfully transform these gateway buildings to improve the offering that they're making for the existing housing. The councilman, you said, will existing residents be enabled to remain? Yes, of course. Some portion of the goal is to make sure those residents have improved quality housing opportunities. Those buildings have not seen, they've been maintained well by the Housing Authority, but they have not seen meaningful investment to modernize those units and create sustainable housing opportunities for the next 30 years.
you mentioned Trenton. Can you give us another municipality as well?
Well, I mean, we're currently at work in Irvington, but we've done a good deal of work in Newark. Our firm has done a variety of project types. So one of the projects that we were associated with is the Haynes redevelopment in downtown Newark. So
Thank you for that. Please go on with your.
sorry. I want to make sure that I've answered the councilman's earlier question about the ongoing role of the Housing Authority. So the Housing Authority is anticipating effectively remaining the underlying owner of the asset. So they will maintain a fee position and finance an acquisition price to support the project through a seller note. So they will remain the fee owner. The property will be subject to a ground lease. The pilot will be on the ground lease. And then the Housing Authority will participate in both the development fee that you cited and will also play a role in the long-term ownership of the improvements. To the administrator's point, the Housing Authority will continue to administer vouchers for the city and for the project.
So, so you're putting in $147 million, the cost, right?
The overall project cost.
Into these 256 units. That's like $600,000 a door.
Some portion of that is the valuation of the land, which is then being contributed. So it's a little bit, I would focus on the amount of work we're doing, and the amount of hard costs specifically is over $200,000 a unit, with the expectation that that will make a significant dent in modernizing these units.
So just step me through here a second. So the Housing Authority is giving you a note for like 41 million of this, right?
To largely offset the purchase price, yes.
So in other words, you're buying it and they're giving you a note. They're carrying the cost of the partial of the property.
Yes. I know that you have some interest in this business yourself, Councilman. So I for the rest of the audience, I think this structure facilitates federal tax credit proceeds that then become a source for the hard costs. So the financial engineering you're citing isn't where the guts of this is. It's really in the fact that we're doing this without reducing tax collections to the city or asking for upfront subsidy. We're doing this entirely on the strength of HUD and federal tax credit proceeds, with HMFA functioning as a conduit.
Okay, okay. So, excuse me. So this note,
Yes.
well, what's the interest rate on this note? Curious.
Honestly, I'm going to get it wrong. I don't know. It's sub 10. I don't know. I don't remember where we came out. Tax counsel to the agency and the tax credit investor will end up resolving that. You know, it's not a driver for the housing authority or for the transaction. It is a part of a financial engineering to try to just generate federal tax credit proceeds that then provide a subsidy so that city and state don't have to do it.
So basically, the goal here is to take these 256 units and rehab them, put in a few $100,000 a door into each apartment, and then put put the tenants back in, whatever. Then put the people back into the project at the rent's going to be the same. It's going to go up. What's the plan there?
The tenants in place won't see a meaningful adjustment to their out of pocket, because I think he said earlier that ultimately they're subject to, you know, limitations on what their incomes are. So their rents are tied to their incomes. What it does do, though, is it enables us to, with a forward-looking view, enhance the breadth of the population that we can serve. So what is currently a public housing asset and is restricted to, you know, public housing tenancy would become more likely to serve the populations the councilman was referring to when he was suggesting the low, very low and moderate. So we will effectively be positioning this asset for the long term as affordable, but taking it again out of the public housing regime and effectively privatizing it and making it a candidate for households up to 80% of AMI, as the administrator said, but a breadth and depth of incomes will be served. So again, existing tenants will not be adversely affected. They may have to move temporarily because we may, you know, destroy their units, but you know, they would have the choice to move back into their unit or to move into a different unit, you know. And so this is the start of a process, as the administrator alluded to, and you know, we take this position seriously because we have been collaborating with this administration on a vision of positive change at the doorstep of this city. So we want to make sure that we maximize the investment we make on the per unit basis. So if you've seen other rehabs of this ilk, not everyone is so fortunate to be able to, you know, put in $200,000 a unit. We've learned over time that we need to make this meaningful investment.
This payment in lieu is 3% of income. Where did that number come from?
Functionally, it was a byproduct of understanding what the site is currently generating and putting this site in a position, this portion of the property and the entirety of the property, to increase tax collections for the city as a whole.
But we're only dealing with one part of it.
That's correct. So to get to your point, hopefully this is the point you're trying to make. So the HMFA, it's not our normal tax pilot structure. It actually starts below the 10% mark. But then there's the other phases, which Mr. Cortell is alluding to, which is the front of the site along State Street. That is separate and apart with separate financial agreements that, depending on the funding source, will run a more traditional possible, you know, tax, you know, pilot or abatement or.
No, and you have required us to consider, you know, the relative diversity of the city. And so our goal, our collective goal, the conversation, is to assure that this site has a mixed product offering, one that serves populations at various rental levels. And so what he's hinting at is that future phases are intended to embrace this sort of evolution and offer, you know, higher rent units, which would then turn around and generate higher pilot payments. So it's intended to be a comprehensive plan. Elements that are not addressed by this is that we're trying to maintain the site's collections for the city. So the city's not taking any reduction in collections, but we're also taking back some of the responsibilities. So the property going forward will maintain security for itself and privatize the trash service, so the burden no longer sits with the city. So taking a loan, the pilot is probably not telling the full story, that considerations for some of those other obligations that we expect to take on are part of the picture too.
Mhm. And the lease on the land is for how long? How many years?
It's effectively structured as a forever lease because in order to make this work for tax credit purposes, it has to be a transfer of title for federal tax credits. So, I mean, I think it has the potential of being 99 years, but I think it's 50 years with an extension.
Mm-hmm. And the restrictions stay forever with the ground lease, call it, in terms of affordable housing?
Theoretically, I mean, the Housing Authority has prioritized the maintenance of affordable housing, so it is their expectation that the regulatory regime would be perpetuated in some form. I mean, it seems like so enduring a set of requirements. I don't know what the long-term future will hold, but the tax credits themselves have a period of compliance, right, and extended through, so at minimum of 30 years, and it will keep going based on the Housing Authority's kind of targeted goal of maintaining affordability.
So I missed that. So where I'm going is, I know, can it be 20 years or 30 years? Can all this affordable stuff go away and this becomes a market rate complex?
It is unlikely in this instance because of the involvement of the Housing Authority. On a normal property, there is this possibility that at the end of the 30-year extended use period, it could go away. I don't see that happening under these circumstances, but we come to this trying to pursue this in an engagement of the partnership with you guys and the Housing Authority, and I don't know what the future holds, but I expect that we need to buttress this facility for the next 30 years so the affordable housing needs of this population are met, but we're also enabling new populations who aren't necessarily public housing tenants to use these units.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Councilman Mayor?
The percentage of units that are affordable again? 100%. The $600,000 a unit sounds like a lot. Why is there rehab versus a knockdown?
Right, so I think he tried to explain that before. So it's really more about 200,000 a unit.
Is the
The reason, right, because there's like implications for the land and the purchase of the land, and that's why the numbers look higher than they really are. And just so we're clear, the pilot payment for this proposal for these 4 sites is more than what we're currently getting for the entire site. And then ultimately, depending on the other buildings and those, there'll be significant increases from there, right? So just so you kind of get a baseline, the reason that the numbers are the way they are is because the whole rear section is 100% affordable for those 30 years. And I would agree with Mr. Cortell, the fact that there's involvement with the Housing Authority. For some of the council members that might have been here at that time, that was already done by the Housing Authority under Victor Cirillo when they did the senior houses. All the senior housing that is currently senior housing did a similar program where they went into a voucher program and they sold it. The best way they sold it is like a refinance of it, but it kind of worked in a similar vein where they used that money, the equity of that income, to infuse it back into the building to rehabilitate the unit. So it's a rehabilitation model where we're looking at a new construction model for the front of this thing. But again, that's not what we're here, but just to give you an idea of what's to come and kind of how those tax implications will be.
I think the property owner mentioned this and Councilman touched on it, and I think we're expecting at least for 30 years for the term of this pilot to remain 100% affordable.
Yes, at least, but it typically extends longer than that because of the involvement of the housing authorities.
Can I get some clarity? Are these buildings being taken down?
No, not the 4 buildings. They're being fully gutted, rehabbed. It's a gut rehab of the interior, and there's exterior repointing and windows and things that we talked about.
And what happens to the people living in these apartments today?
So depending on how the construction goes, they may be working on units that are vacant and then asking people that want to stay to move. But before all that, there's a whole relocation plan that has to be approved by HUD that's then offered to all the tenants. And then depending on who stays, who goes, there'll be a musical chairs, for lack of a better expression, for those that want to stay while they repair the units.
Council President, we held multiple town hall meetings here at the council chambers where residents were allowed to come and ask questions, where there were very clear presentations. And they even have what is often referred to as a relocation manager, which is like a project manager that is tasked with the responsibility of meeting with each family member. Each of them are going to be given vouchers, and they'll be able to choose whether or not they want to move somewhere and come back to the apartment. They have first dibs, which is an easier way to describe it, to come back to the apartment. And as the business administrator described it, they can move to a vacant apartment, ask for a fixing one, and then come back to it. But it is very much the priority of the housing authority, along with our administration and with our city council and those involved, to ensure that every family understands their options and they are considered along with the process. As to the question that was asked by Councilman Mayor, and I think Councilman Monk alluded to it, and I know you were concerned of this as well. It would have been the desire to knock them all down. I made that very clear. And Jonathan is excellent, beyond his smiles. But he knows that my response will come when the project is done. We often discuss the need to ensure that it is significant, that it's not just superficial rehab. And I think the business administrator, again, described it perfectly as he articulated, to full gutting and ensuring that when the people come back, they see the change and that it is set up for success for the next 30 years. So, but each family member or each individual resident that is in the unit will be given the option to come back or to take their voucher and free country go wherever they can with their voucher if they so choose. And that's done through housing.
Okay.
Did we have public hearing yet? It's closed?
Right now, we're in public hearing, and the council has questions, which I'm entertaining before. That's discretion. What else can you share with us, Mayor? And I must tell you, this is the real deal, huh? I remember being on Housing Authority 30 years ago.
Yes, that's when it started.
That's right.
That's when oh gosh.
Again, I want to reiterate, because I think it's important. We've had multiple town hall meetings. We've had residents come, and some have been tense, to say the least, and others have been much more productive as people understood what the process is. It's been a real effort, and I do want to commend Jonathan for being present at each of the meetings, including the executive director, the commissioners on board, the representatives from housing, to ensure that the residents understand that it is a collective commitment by government, by the developers, by the investors, by housing, to ensure that this project, and considering that it is a gateway, an entrance to the city, is not just about aesthetics. It's about investing in the families. The mixed income is purposely done to ensure that individuals aren't living in a concentration of low income, which that formula, and as the business administrator shared, I believe at the last council meeting, has not shown to be successful.
So
Go ahead.
So what do we do then, Mayor, when we've got the people to replace? I'm living in public housing now. I have to exit it for a year, whatever. I come back. How do we ensure that all the people coming back, which is the vast majority of people, period, don't all reflect one economic status?
Well, that's
Did I say that,
to
did I
the-
say that? Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yes,
I understand,
it's a good
like,
question.
right. So, as Mr. Cortell was stating, and I don't want to lose that as part of the conversation, there is a range that is required under the HMFA of different AMIs.
So what happens if that range, and I remember clearly what you had said, and I appreciate it tremendously, but what happens if practically everybody who wants to come back comes back, and all of the people coming back are at the same economic income level?
One, they get much better units than we had before. That's what we have now.
Yeah.
And they end up having much better units, and hopefully their children grow up in an environment where they see greater opportunities and the next generation does better. And they get access to more income, more job. And then in the future, what was alluded to with a mixed income, they may be living alongside someone that would inspire them to say, hey, this individual's going to college, I'm going to college, or this person started a business, and perhaps my son or my daughter, I can work there. Ideally, that would be the case. Obviously, we cannot 100% predict what will happen, but I think the investment in the area, the approach being taken will go a long way to let families know that their income, subsidized housing, shouldn't mean substandard living. That we are going to invest in that project and provide opportunities for growth. And sometimes that's just with the change of environment. And I think that will be called there.
Right, and there's checks and balances through that approved relocation plan from HUD for making those accommodations. Yeah, this is vetted by multiple layers, not just like the city and the housing authority, the HMFA, the federal government, like.
But to your point, and I think it's a good point, but it's important that we share what would be the alternative. I mean, if we're investing there where people live, we want to let them know you have the right to come back.
No,
Each one of them that leaves, and I think you have shared that in the past before, that it's extremely important that everyone knows they're not being kicked out so we can make something nice and then they don't get access to it again. But there is a plan moving forward to ensure that there are opportunities for workforce, for moderate, for income that is mixed, without taking away from them.
And also, one of the problems that I remember years ago, and perhaps it's no longer germane today, but rewarding people for intergenerational occupancy of something that was never meant for intergenerational. Are we condoning, promoting a culture which is antithetical to what it is that we're trying to accomplish?
It's a much deeper conversation.
Be all night here for that.
No, it's a fair conversation. I don't know where it goes in the future. But Council President, I remember a few months ago we heard that there was going to be a sort of end to housing from this administration. There were rumors that you would get 2 years to come off and you're gone. We know that approach, to say it's callous and cruel, would be an understatement. Of course, we want to encourage individuals to not want to live there and pass it on to the next generation in terms of depending on finance. We want to see upward economic and social mobility. We want you to go to college. We want you to get a better job and not have to live there. When the business administrator said a holistic approach, bear with me now, I'll try to wrap up quick. I remember when we talked about why it was important for us to redo Dundee Island. Why we went after over $12 million. Why we wanted to give the downtown area this beautiful park in front of the river so that kids wouldn't grow up just staring at brick and mortar. Because we believe that when you're exposed to something better, it opens up the possibilities, not just the actual ones, but the intangible ones. What your mind can conceive, what you think, what you can dream of. For many, the idea of nature may inspire you to think that there's something else in this world, and not to wax too poetic. The idea that we would invest there, that there would be mixed income, that they would see something different than just brick and mortar. That maybe there's a commercial component and you're working there on the first floor, that maybe some of the investments whether it's just bushes and trees and seeing more green, will change your mentality to say, I liked the way this looked when I grew up and I want more. I want to buy a house. I want to move somewhere else. That's how I would respond to it. That though we cannot guarantee it, we believe that data has shown that the impact of where you live and how you perceive it directly, or at least data, again, I'll reiterate, correlation between whether or not you move up, whether you get a better education, get a better job. And that's the best that we can do.
Last note on this, and then we'll open up discussion more, but I'll remember when I was in the Housing Authority, I kind of blew some people's minds. I suggested that each commissioner with his or her family should occupy an apartment in Spear Village for a month to understand better the construct. My colleagues shot me down immediately for lots of reasons, most of them bad, but nonetheless. Okay. Members of the council. Yes, I've got Councilman Miller, please.
Council President, I'll yield to the council. I'll yield to the council.
Go ahead, Councilman Love. You can
I
go.
just had I want to say thank you to everyone for the dialogue. And Mayor, I know how intense you are and hands-on with this project. But the question I have is, have we had any citizens or residents on any of the committees or sat in on the development of this plan? The reason why I ask is that they provide a insight that many of us probably wouldn't even have. So I'm just wondering if we had any one or a few residents in this planning stage and or in the informational stage of the project.
I know I spoke about town hall meetings, but there was also the inclusion of input from the residents with, I believe there were surveys that went out, there was information that housing sent out, working alongside with the developers and the investors. So yes, there was multiple opportunities throughout this process for residents to share input, to definitely share their concerns, to respond to information that they were receiving, sometimes inaccurate information, more so directly from housing. But again, I think that we had at least 4 here and over there at Aspen Place, as well as we did tours, went door to door. I mean, one time we were on the roof, having a meeting up there. That was one of the more exciting meetings.
No, thank God no one jumped.
So yes, Councilman, yes, there has, but what we can do, of course, is through the business administrator, reach out to the housing director, the executive director, just to share some information in regards to the residents' involvement that we could present to the next council meeting, so they are aware.
I thank you so much for that, Mayor. Because I think that's a crucial part of this, right? Because and I'm being a little redundant because it has been said in terms of the process and how these vouchers are going to work. There's a lot of garbage out there, and we need to be as transparent and as fair to folks who one, this is a very new process to many of us and them as well. And so I would just like that as much information and input from the residents as possible. And I thank you. I see you have done so.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Miller, please.
Thank you, Council President. So with this pilot, is this similar, and please follow me, just what is happening with like the NYCHA in New York, what they're doing with their housing? Is that similar, where they're going in, rehabbing, people are moving out, and then bringing it back? But also the managing company, HUD pretty much still owns the land. The managing company will maintain the day-to-day. Is that the same way this is going to be managed?
Yeah, very, very similar, yeah. It's very similar.
Because I've been
I just don't like to compare us to
No, just
any
so I
of
can
just in
have-
case, but
No, just-
yeah,
just-
it's
The only
very
difference,
similar, yeah.
Mr. Administrator, so again, to clarify that housing will be dealing with the vouchers,
Yes.
and then they will be dealing with the actual property.
Okay. Okay, and how long, as people are moving out, how long will they be out for? Is there a time frame? 6 months, a year? How quick? 'Cause, I mean, I've seen cases where a month or two, but take longer.
Yeah, it's not as long as all that. I think it will ultimately depend on the final scope of work we select, but we've been talking about 2 to 4 weeks at the longest, okay, for the person's displacement. And what we've been doing, by the way, is displacement is only to a hospitality setup that we might provide on premises. So functionally, a restored unit will be made available to that population. So they move into what was previously a vacant that's now been restored, and then while they're in this hospitality suite, their unit is renovated, and so they can then move back. So they're not off, and they're not, you know, lost at sea during that period. They're simply in a different unit. We have done some offsite hoteling, but you know, it'll depend, and we spend a lot of time focus on communication because this is disarming. This can be unsettling, and we want it to be as painless as possible because we want them to be an advocate for the success of the building, and then the building will endure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Why don't you, if you wouldn't mind, Jonathan, why don't you just say where you are? I think we're going to.
Oh, okay.
Councilman Mayor, please.
Wearing another hat, I've climbed those stairs because of the elevators being out of service. And I can only imagine how terrible it is for the residents having 2 elevators out of service. Tell me those elevators are getting
Modernized, absolutely. Yeah.
2 brand new elevators.
I don't want to like speak out of turn because I'm not sure I have a handle on the details, but we've done this enough to know that the elevators are like the heartbeat of the building. So you can't have elevators that don't function or that are inclined to go out. The building is underserved, so we will be modernizing the elevators to improve speed and quality. So it's a core tenet of the scope, no question.
Thank you.
No problem.
How about in terms of vandalism while everything's going on, Jonathan? How does that work?
How do we inhibit vandalism? How do we? It's very hard to compete with what the mayor was saying, but if I can highlight what he
gave
said.
up a long time ago, by the way.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll give up. I'll just say that some portion of pride of place is going to offset some of that. We think that vandalism will be reduced by the care with which we deliver the improved product and then the expectations that we communicate to the residents. So the management team that will be in place, some portion of which will have learned from the experience of the existing housing authority staff, will be targeting the issues that have been issues of the past and creating impediments to any problems that you've seen over time. And I think we will also be in a position to exercise more discretion with where tolerance should be shortened, right? If there is a repeat offender, that won't be tolerated and it will be addressed. One of the comments earlier, and maybe this speaks to something you said, Councilman, is that tenants will be subject to annual leases, and those leases will have adjustments based on what the administrator referred to as the AMI. So the AMI is adjusted from year to year. Tenants will be subject to rent increases over time, which isn't really the case now in the public housing establishment, right? But the increases are moderated. There's no disincentive for the tenant to grow their income. In fact, it's encouraged. I say this with confidence in part because I think the tax credit program has been one of the most effective devices for the development of affordable housing, whether it's the market rate buildings in Manhattan that have affordable set-asides. Those affordable set-asides are made possible by a tax abatement and by the tax credits that we're using as well. So, Councilwoman, you said something about a NYCHA project. Some portion of this same formula, the math, is employing some of the same logic that's being used on the affordable components of those market rate towers on 6th Avenue, for example. So we expect limitations on the transfers of the leases because named parties on the leases have to be counted towards the household size, and each of the households fit the units subject to a tax credit regulatory agreement. So there will be parameters that are more strict than the ones that are in place on the public housing, potentially addressing some of your concerns about long-term.
Yeah, but just to be clear, those increases are limited by HUD.
Yes, and the annual adjustments. So, right,
So
so.
I just want to, for the
yeah,
record,
that's
after
what-
all we've been through, I want to
Yeah,
make
no, HUD is,
clarity.
yes.
Yeah, this is handled, those increases and the amounts, that's all handled by HUD. That gives us the numbers that we have to abide by. So this is not just open the faucets. He has to follow whatever HUD requires.
On top of that, Council President, I did want to add, because you shared about addressing existing issues. Jonathan had shared they haven't had any significant rehabs for over 30 years. Just to remind some who may be watching online and those who aren't familiar, some of the complaints that we have had over the years. Doors that don't close, security locks that are never functioning, individuals who come in and out unchecked. I know that there was a similar project done in one of our neighboring municipalities, the largest one in the state of Newark, where one of the specific properties, as they were looking at it, the design, strategically considered what aspects of it were making it more conducive for individuals to avoid or stay in areas that perhaps you would want to decrease or you wouldn't want that. I know that we've had conversations about what it will look like, how it will be managed, and how the design will impact that. So I think that speaks directly to some of the concerns, not only vandalism, but of real worries of families in terms of their children and safety, and when they're engaged in recreation and coming home after school. And I know all of this will be taken into consideration in terms of the rehab and the gutting of the units individually, which I think it's important that gets highlighted as well, that there are vacant units that they will begin with. And then obviously, in a pragmatic approach, now that we have a vacant unit that has been rehabbed, you can go in there. Because I think perhaps the perception might be, or the understanding is some that it gets fully gutted all at the same time and everyone has to go. So going piece by piece, they're able to address that, right?
Mayor, my last question, I shouldn't say, I think I have my last question. Tell me about the Trump effect. What I mean by the question is, most of us would agree, whether we are in favor of the president's policies or not, that he is at best mercurial, that he changes his mind maybe several hundred times a day on any given subject. Is it possible that he wakes up tomorrow morning, God willing, he wakes up tomorrow morning, well, and he changes his mind in terms of what HUD does and how it does it, and we're going to get out of this affordable housing business because we should be pouring all of our money into making more aircraft carriers because we need one or two.
Unfortunately, I think you answered your own question. Anything is possible.
Is there anything that we've done or need to do or should do to make sure that we don't have that scenario?
My impression is that this represents a policy that has we're implementing a program that has general support, that HUD has been changing policies on the daily. We've gotten an update on policy statements, just yesterday. But I think that the formula that we have laid out here is one that is being encouraged by this HUD, as well as its predecessors. And, the Big Beautiful Bill expanded the credit program. Yes, it had a negative effect on the amount of credits. So it made too many credits available, so the price of the credits is coming down, natural supply and demand. So policy changes made have both intended and unintended consequences. I believe that this program is supported by and would be sustained by the policies of this administration. But as you said, nobody can predict.
As you stated, mercurial.
Yeah.
I think that's the key word. But there's a green light right now, and we can move forward. And we've seen some positive response from this administration's side with this project. And I think the mixed income The plan itself, as Jonathan already articulated, has been well received. So that's how we're trying to move forward.
Councilman Monk, your line? And then I want to try to open this up to other people besides the governing body.
How do we guarantee that the reason why you have invested so much time and effort into this to improve the housing of the people that live in Spirit Village, right? There are developers and there are developers, right? You could build an apartment with a solid door. You could build an apartment with a hollow door. Okay, a hollow door doesn't take long before it's kicked in and has holes in it, right? So once we sign, once we sign an agreement here for the next 30, 40, or 50 years, like we have no clue how long this will last, but a long time, right? And you get all your pilots and you get everything. What incentive is there for you to build a project that's going to maintain the look and the feel what we're trying to accomplish here, then in 5 years be back to where we are today? Obviously, these buildings are old. I don't know if we'll ever get back to where we are, but we're not going to accomplish with all the effort and goals. So what is in place, the negotiations with this developer? Okay, he might be a nice guy, great smile and everything, right? But the bottom line is we're all human beings and we all like making money and we all like making more money. Okay, so the difference between a project that's really solid, built for the future, built with this in mind, in terms of the maintenance, the type of carpet, you could put down carpet that's $10 a square foot, put down $30 a square foot, whatever it is, in terms of how long it lasts, what it's going to look like, could make a difference. You know, to a developer, it could be millions of dollars of money in his pocket. What is in place to guarantee that what the goal here is actually going to play out? I mean, these are numbers. Numbers don't talk about quality.
Yeah.
So if we could just address that, please.
Understood. But what I was going to say is there's no way that we have 100% guarantee. There are requirements that they have to meet. There are construction codes, there are inspections, but allow me to elaborate a little bit more. As government, it's our responsibility to determine whether a partner, and I'll refer to them as a partner with the city, has the best interests in mind of our residents, aligns with our vision, and of course, none of us are naive enough to think they're not in it to make a profit. Everyone is. So we look at history. As Jonathan had shared previous projects. We understand that to a certain extent, they need this project to be a positive one because they want to do more. I don't imagine this will be the last one. They want to do this project and they're done in the state. We have some, and I'll try to be humble in the description, some rather influential officials from the state and locally. Some that know this business and know the numbers and know exactly how these projects should end up. In case anyone's missing it, I'm talking about Assemblyman, Councilman Monk, Planner, Councilman Mayor, Councilwoman Mello, Councilman Garcia, Councilwoman Montañez, and Councilman Love, and myself. This isn't an approval and then we all walk away. I mean, Jonathan can share how many meetings we've had, some of them very tense in our conference room, some of them including representatives from housing, some with residents, and we've stayed very late into the evening until every single person has been heard. So outside of just the obvious safeguards of inspections and code regulations and requirements, it's that we are all involved in this. And we're going to be involved in it every step of the way. So I'm not sure if you're suggesting something, but I want you to know that we did do our due diligence. There was a visit on a similar project with them in Newark to inspect it, to consider it, to see how it's working, not just a year after, the years after. That's why I referred to certain safety measures that sometimes come by design. Those are strategic design you're developing. You can sometimes create conditions that invite elements of undesirable elements to come and create issues. And then there's designs that can deter that. I think all of that is being put together. But in terms of structurally sound construction and ensuring that safety concerns are addressed, they have to. You can't circumvent regulations and laws, and we're not the kind of city that allow you to do that and turn a blind eye to it.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
However, I will say that, you know, government is government, right?
Understood.
Right? And we all wear different hats, right? I don't know if anyone in City Hall, again, I don't mean to in any way is a negative, but bottom line is we all have our specialty, right? And there are people that specialize in terms of writing up a spec report on a development. Like if you go to a typical development, there's what's it called? AI form, AIA, what's it called? That form. That form, right? That specifies exactly the quality of everything that's going to be used by a developer. You know, there's a difference when you start, you know, you change the quality of the door, you change the quality of the molding, you change the quality of the countertop, okay? You change any little thing, the amount of years of what it's going to look like, right? And I don't know, like who, I'll be a lot more comfortable knowing, that the city has a consultant, right, that went through the detail of the building that we're giving here. You know, it's a beautiful, I get the benefit what it is for the city. I get that, but there's also benefit. You're not doing it for free. You're not running a charity organization, right? And granted, you deserve it, right? But when someone's making millions and millions of dollars of profit, that little change is another $1 million. Why? Why shouldn't they?
But unlike,
I mean, if I didn't have anyone write exact
unlike a different
specs,
project, though.
as much as I love,
Gentlemen, I need, you both have so much important things to say. If one of you could say.
No, it's an important question. I just want to say, unlike other projects, they're doing this with housing. Housing is going with them every step of the way, so they have to keep an eye on it. They don't get to deviate and cut corners and tell housing, don't worry about it.
Understood. So the fact we have code does not tell you what type of door you have to have.
No, but they make sure the door is put in correctly. So what you have is there's multiple layers. I can't stress this enough. It is, you are correct. Everybody has their specialties. There's like 50 different specialties that have to review this before it gets approved. And I'm glad you brought the A1A. They can't get release of funds until HUD reviews that reimbursement for that portion and make sure it complies with what it is that they're submitting. So there, besides our code that's going to make sure it's built correctly, not to mention, don't worry about the apartment doors because the UCC requires them to be solid and can't be hollow. So that's a requirement. That's why when he was saying, I was like, I got to tell him that, right? So besides those, you also have the requirements of the funding source that's going to analyze and review every single dollar. And by the way, and I've been there, and I know you might have been there too, where if the nail isn't the right nail that they said that was in the A1A, they're like, we're not paying for that nail. You said it was going to be this nail, and that's what I'm paying for. I'm being a little extra.
We also have their track record to look upon.
Well, that's where the mayor
They're
started.
working in Irvington and Trenton. I mean, you
And
can
we walk
survive
the buildings.
CRA, you can
We walk
survive
the
anything.
buildings.
Yeah, East Orange. Yeah, I mean,
East Orange, excuse me.
I think, Councilman, some of the other points they're both making, but implicitly, HMFA has reviewed our plans on all of these projects and reviewed them diligently for the quality of the product, just as you suggest. We take on through this tax credit program a investor who is the limited partner in the ownership, and they have ongoing monitoring that they will do. In fact, we have a building in Orange, and I'm being sort of tortured on that, where they want to remove a street tree because it is a tripping hazard. Street tree. It's probably more beneficial than not, but there's, to the administrator's credit, there's an enormous amount of, it takes a village to get these deals done, And there will be multiple eyes on this, so it's not the obligation will not simply be on the city. Furthermore, some of the structure of these deals necessitates a deferral of some portion of the fee that you've called out, and the expectation is that that fee has to be collected over 15 years. So the assumption that we would make is that we are in it to assure the success of the building for not today, not tomorrow, but we're motivated to assure the collection of the deferred fee over that 15-year period. And finally, we've done this enough. I mean, look, I want to believe that I can accomplish this project for the mayor, for the administrator, for you by myself, but I bring to bear a robust development concern with 400 people, and the expectation is that they all want to tell you about all the mistakes that can be made. And we will have that. Not only will we be policed by others, we will police ourselves, and we will assure a product that we will be proud to own, proud to put on in our portfolio, and hopefully we don't have to do anything to maintain it because it was so well built.
Thank you. Mr. Wolf, you've been patiently sitting, and I know you wanted to speak on the ordinance.
I appreciate that very much, Council President. I want to ask the council, as much as we have not been receiving any money or any tax revenue from these 256 units to date, it seems to me, I'm sure it occurs to you as well, that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the city. The city doesn't have many assets to auction off, to sell off, to lease off. It sounds like there are other projects like this that are getting higher pilot payments. This project is in an opportunity zone. This project is getting seller financing. This project is getting LIHTC credits. This is getting tax credits. It seems to me, not only that, for every $1 invested in this project, this developer is receiving back $1 in loans from the seller and $1 in tax credits. That's $2 back for every $1 invested. 3% pilot that means it's going to take this developer 10 days of collecting rent of that year to pay taxes. The average multifamily in Passaic, it takes you a month. It takes you a month to pay back taxes. A $1,500 rent on 10 units has an average of $15,000 in taxes. On a two-family house in Passaic, it takes you 109 days in collections to pay your property taxes. You have an average of $4,400 in rent a month on a two-family, and you have an average of $16,000 in taxes. So 109 days. So this developer is taking 10% of the time of a two-family house to pay his tax bill. Why am I saying a tax bill? Mr. Fernandez mentioned a Rutgers study. A Rutgers study says that up to 60 students come to public school in low-tech housing for every 100 units. If they're proposing 400 units, that's 240 students. That's a cost of $4 to $5 million based on how much it costs in Passaic to educate students. We know low income, this police department's very busy with, EMS is busy with. There's a lot of social services. I'm asking the city, this developer sounds like he knows what he's doing, and we're learning what he's doing. Do we really need him today? I'm sure you could work with him. Do you need to give away this asset for the next 30 years at 3%? One more point. There's something called a break-even point. The break-even point in business is where the costs stop and the revenue starts creating income. So if you have a low-income project in Louisiana collecting $600 in rent, compared to a project in New Jersey collecting $2,200 in rent, your refrigerator is the same cost nationwide. That means in Louisiana, you're going to have to take 1 month's rent to replace that refrigerator. In New Jersey, you're going to replace the refrigerator with the cost of 10 days' rent. This developer, as soon as he starts raising rents, his income is going to far exceed the city's income. Meaning to say, on day one, he might be even. He might be breaking even though he'll be making money. But as his rents go up, his net income, his percentage of rent that goes towards his income exponentially increases, while the city is still collecting only 3% of his rent. I'm asking the city again, can you collect 10%? Do you have to give him 30 years? I don't mean to one up on the city, but the city mentions 5-year abatement or 30-year abatement. The fact of the matter is that the city can give a 7-year abatement tax pilot. They can give a 17-year tax pilot. How much does this developer need and how much does this developer want? Thank you. I'm sorry, one more point I forgot to mention. While the city is not making money on this development today, I'm sorry, thank you.
Mr. Fernandez, why a pilot of 20 years? 20 years, is it?
It's a 30-year pilot, but it's developed based on the funding source. So as I stated originally, the numbers are guided through the HMFA financing and the numbers that they're looking for, which are typically under 6%. And we can't, so there were a lot of assumptions made in those statements that cannot be used under this product. It's 100% affordable. It's an HMFA, low income, that's LIHTC, is low income housing tax credits that are used for the project, as well as we are looking for the future investment, which is part of the project of the other phases that require additional funding that will not be included in the same type of financing. So again, going back to our point of a holistic project, this is phase one. That's why I started with that, of an overall project that's going to infuse additional dollars in different ways that will not qualify for this. It's an overall kind of approach that's going to require that. And I think you've heard for quite some time now how the structure, it's a layered structure. So the numbers you're looking at isn't exactly a 1-year deal. It could be paid back in 15 years. So that there's multiple layers, not to mention that we also need it to be viable enough to lead to the construction of the other phases, which will infuse much more open and greater taxable interest, which is kind of the long-term tax abatement law versus how it's guided under HMFA, which does not follow the same structure. It has to be below that structure.
Just as a matter of curiosity, Victor Holinsky is involved in this, yeah?
His firm is the attorney's representative. They brought a representative, Mr. Corey Klein, from his office from Sills, Cummins, and Gross.
Okay, thank you.
Taking in now, what are we gonna take?
Councilman Mayor, please.
Is there a time of essence here? So we're not seeing the holistic picture.
I'm sorry?
Is there like a time of essence here? Like
Yes,
we're not
there
seeing the
is.
holistic portion?
That is correct. So right now, they need to get into that pipeline for HMFA financing. So right now, they require this document so he can be put into the pipeline for the funding. So that'll get them the rehab of that component. And then you can leverage that rehab off in the other units and the other construction that they're doing.
When do we expect to see the rest of this project phase?
So my understanding, and Jonathan can correct me if I'm wrong, you're looking at construction sometime next year, right? For the rehab.
Yes, honestly, the goal is to try to get to the financing closing this year so that we can implement the rehab as soon as possible. I would collaborate.
HMFA process, so they know the length of
Oh,
time.
sure. So the approval of the pilot enables what is called a financing authorization by the HMFA. We are also subject to HUD timeline. So HUD is waiting for this in order to sort of affirm what they've called a concept call and then a financing plan. With approvals by HMFA and HUD, and then the engagements by banks who will buy the credits, and part of the pilot structure is dictated too by the tax credit investor who wants some relative security about the schedule for as long as they're in the deals. The credit investor's in for at least 15 years. So they're looking for no less than a 15-year pilot. The goal is to get to the rehab done by the end of the year, and then follow, say 6 to 12 months later with the new construction on what is currently the office building. If the administration, if the administrator feels it's appropriate, I would suggest that we, before the end of this calendar year, if not before the end of the summer, we discuss more about the new construction and its attributes. So
When you refer to new construction, you're talking about phase 2 of this
phase
project.
phase 2 is contemplated as the redevelopment of the office.
The 2 buildings on State Street.
That would be theoretically phase 3.
So when do we get to see that?
I will work in coordination.
I'll tell you why. Like, you're going to go through this process now till next year. All of a sudden, you're going through this process, and then we're going to see the state.
So the discussions we're having is that as they're doing the rehab, we're working on site plans for the other phases, right? Which could be 2 different phases or a blurred phase 2, right?
Yep.
Where they're going to be preparing. So the work isn't stopping on phase 2 and 3. It's just in development phase, right? So they got to get through this first phase, and then they're working on site plans for the other phases, and then they have to go out and finance those other phases. So I can't assume, and the timeline's really on you based on what your preparation is, but I can't see the other phase starting till the year after that, at least, right?
Well, right. I mean, I'm also, we're interested in, as I said earlier, creating a more diverse income mix over the overall, and the state is enabling us in part to consider a workforce housing band, and there is a fund being raised that would be available statewide, and we'd like to get into the queue for that.
Right.
So honestly, I'm looking at
funding related.
I'm looking at the administrator in part because I don't want to get ahead of him, but we're eager to discuss the next phase too. So if you want to have a conversation at a future meeting, I'm happy to come back and make a presentation.
Right now we haven't gotten, so basically he's preparing for the phases, and we had a conversation about meeting up to discuss those future phases so that.
We're talking about the next biggest, greatest thing, but like the sooner we see it, I think the happier.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't want to miss the point of what Jonathan said, that there's funding out there. So a lot of it's also guided by the funding, right? So he wants to get in that queue as soon as possible, which would then require him to speed up the process on the other phases to get in the pipeline, because, just like low-income housing tax credits are one of the most competitive financing options, you want to make sure you're competitive and get in there sooner rather than later. But again, we're also beholden to their timelines and when they release the funds so that then he can start on the other phases. What I can tell you from an administrative perspective was that we're ready to accept those proposals at any time that they're prepared. So Jonathan had discussed having a site plan prepared for us to look it over before he submits the other phases, right? Because of everything the mayor just said and all the discussions we had here and what he heard early this evening, he wants to make sure that that site plan is exactly the vision that the mayor's been talking about.
And in regards to time being of the essence, I mean, the council president referred to the Trump effect. We've heard words that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And of course, we can sit and speculate how 10% of 50% of the 80% of the 100% of the 200% divided by pi and multiplied by 3, because I can grab numbers from the sky as well and make a presentation. But specifically, what we're discussing right now is whether or not this is a worthwhile project, whether we've done our due diligence, whether we've seen projects done in the past and seen the positive impact, whether there's going to be oversight based on the funding source, based on regulations and code, and whether or not these families are going to get an opportunity to see significant rehab and opportunities to develop an area that has, and I know that Jonathan said underserved, and that housing has done a good job of managing, but I'll be a little more blunt, that has been in disarray and neglect for way too long. And I think that there are a lot of opportunities now to make a real impact. I think that it is the desire of every member of this governing body, because I've had conversations with all of you, to provide better for our residents. And this is a real opportunity. And I don't know what happens with this administration. I think the council president was very poignant when he shared that. Profound. You're right. Things could change a year from now. But right now, it seems like everything is lined up. And if we sit around wondering, can we do better? can we get better and lose out an opportunity to make this change? I don't think it would be worth it. That's my 2 cents. If you divide it by 5%, it would be less than that. Sorry. Yeah.
It is now almost 10 o'clock. I'd like to ask that questions be as limited as possible, but if there are questions, what are they?
Yeah, thank you, Council President. I do have a question. Is there any legal commitment that the city gave for the rest of the parcel? I mean, you made a great presentation. Sounds like you have a great company. But I don't know, maybe there's someone with even a bigger smile out there for the next piece, for the next parcel.
I can't imagine. The concept has uniformly been a redevelopment agreement that has carrots and sticks, and the sticks will induce us to deliver the next phase as part of a follow-up on the rehab.
Yeah, so it's already in the agreements.
So if it's in the agreements already, what negotiating powers do we have when we spoke about, fine, this piece is a 3%, but we'll have the cherry on the top, right? The cream will come on the next few parcels. Right?
Yeah, because those are all negotiated. So
right, but how can we negotiate if we already made a commitment?
What commitment?
You haven't made a commitment to
To
the
the
second
other
and third
phases.
phases.
There's no commitment for the other phases.
That's my question. If
No, the only commitment is that he has to construct the other phases.
You have, the administrator has tried to focus this conversation on the rehab because that's really what's on the table right now. And separately, he has induced his attorneys to include carrots and sticks in these legal documents that induce us to follow through and come back to you effectively. We can't get to the next financing without coming back to you another time.
I'm saying, but are we committed to this firm?
There's no other pilot whatsoever.
But we committed to this
So they're
firm.
the designated redevelopers. So as you know, once you're designated a redeveloper, and in this case, they weren't just designated a redeveloper by us. They were first vetted and designated a redeveloper by the housing authority and went through all that rigmarole and then was brought to us and we then designated.
So fine, got it. Okay. Okay, thank you.
No,
Is there anyone else who would like to address the council, please? You may ask one more question. I would ask that it be germane and limited.
Okay, thank you. To Councilman Terrence Love, I just want to say the Housing Authority is a government entity, and these are private investors. I'm not saying anyone deserves to be in a public housing space if they're not entitled. But there is no question in my mind and in your mind that they will be much more efficient and scrutinizing of inconsistencies in people's income and habitation status. I also want to ask the city, this was a developer that you chose. How many other developers did you meet? And the projects in Newark that you looked at, what was the rate of the tax pilot over there? Was it also only 3%? And you said it has to be under 10%. Does it have to be under 10%? Could it be 9.9%? Thank you. Again, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity that the city is raising taxes because of their budgets and increasing costs. And I ask you, do you need to rush in at 3%? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the council on this issue and this issue only? Seeing no lights.
Move to close.
Second. Roll call, please, to close public hearing.
Councilman Monk,
Yes.
Councilman Love, Councilwoman Mello,
Yes.
Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Garcia,
Yes.
Councilman Colon Montañez,
Yes.
and Council President Scheer.
Yes, that was to close. Is there a motion to accept the ordinance, please?
Move it.
Second.
Motion and second to accept.
Councilman Monk,
Yes.
Councilman Love, Councilwoman Mello,
Yes.
Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Garcia,
Yes.
Councilman Colon Montañez,
Yes.
and Council President Scheer.
Yes, the ordinance passes. We're up to number 4. Please propose an ordinance 2530-26, an ordinance amending Chapter 128 Employer Regulations To add Article 2, Worker Payment Protection and Anti-Coercion. Is there a motion, please, to open public hearing?
Move it.
Motion
Second.
and second. Thank you. Roll call.
Councilman Monk,
Yes.
Councilman Love, Councilwoman Mello,
Yes.
Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Garcia.
Yes.
Councilwoman Colom Montañez.
Yes.
And Council President Sher.
Yes, thank you. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, the council will be deliberating proposed ordinance 2530-26. Is there anyone who would like to address the council on this item and this item only?
Move to close.
There's a motion and a second to close public hearing. Roll call.
Councilman Monk,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mello,
Yes.
Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Garcia.
Yes.
Councilwoman Colom Montañez.
Yes.
And Council President Sher.
Yes, thank you. We opened, that was for public discussion.
We need to move on the ordinance.
We're voting on the ordinance?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, is there a motion, please, to accept?
Move it. Second.
Motion and second to accept the ordinance. Roll call.
Councilman Monk,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mello,
Yes.
Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Garcia.
Yes.
Councilwoman Colom Montañez.
Yes.
And Council President Sher.
Yes, thank you. Up to communications, Roman numeral 6 on our agenda, items 5 through 10. Are there any questions, please, on 5 through 10? Seeing no lights at this time, is there a motion, please, to accept 5 to 10? Motion
Second.
and second. Thank you. Roll call.
Councilman Monk,
Yes.
Councilman Love,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mello,
Yes.
Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Garcia. Councilwoman Colom Montañez.
Yes.
And Council President Sher.
Yes, thank you. All matters listed here under considered to be routine in nature. Items 11 through 21. Are there any questions, please, on 11 through 21? Seeing no lights, is there a motion, please, to accept?
Move it.
Motion
Second.
and second. Roll call, please.
Councilman Monk,
Yes.
Councilman Love, Councilwoman Mello,
Yes.
Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Garcia.
Yes.
Councilwoman Colom Montañez.
Yes.
And Council President Sher.
Yes, thank you. On 22 alone, is there a motion, please, to accept 22?
Move.
Motion and second on 22.
Councilman Monk,
What's that, 23?
22.
22?
separate
Yes.
vote. Councilman Love,
Yes.
Councilman Mello,
Yes.
Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Garcia,
Yes.
Councilwoman Colom Montañez,
Abstain.
and Council President Sher.
Yes, thank you. We're up to resolutions, Roman numeral 7 on our agenda. Resolution 23 authorizes a closed executive session. Ma'am, do we need closed executive? Mr. Fernandez, do we need?
No, Council President.
Mr. Mayor, sir?
None at this time.
Members of the council? Very good. If we could go on, please, to 24 through 31. Are there any questions, please, on 24 through 31? Councilman Mayor.
26.
On 26, please, your question, sir.
The, just under $1 million is for planning and preparation for underneath that overpass and for coming out of the $6 million that we reapproved at the last meeting.
Yeah, this is actually done through the state. They're the ones that are kind of dictating this.
You saw
We
that.
actually, rebid it, and this is the second. And the state's require and we award it for the project.
But is it coming out of that 6 million or is this
Yes.
additional? It's coming out of the 6 million. And number 30, page 9, I think it's just a clerical error.
Say that again?
Number 30, page 9.
Number 30.
Page 9, I think the dates maybe,
Oh, the dates are off?
yeah.
Okay, so can we just correct the dates on the record and then we'll make that, and we'll move from there. So
That would be
this is, what happened is,
It's a renewal, yeah. I got it.
yeah,
Which resolution?
It's resolution number 30. It's this page, is it the second page? now?
And when
No,
are we
it's page
changing, what
9.
dates are we changing,
I don't
Councilman?
know. The term of this agreement shall begin January 1st, 2024. So whatever it should be changed to.
so one is for 2024, then one is for 2025, and one is for 2026. We're gonna assure that every resolution has the corrected date, one resolution for 2024, one for 2025, and one for 2026. So the housing authority was delayed in giving us the resolutions, so we don't execute a contract until they give us their resolutions, so that's why we're doing 3 of them at once. In 2022, We did the 2023, we did 2022, 2023. So we'll make sure that every resolution has the correct year.
That is for 30 specific?
That's for 30. 30 is for,
Susie, that's okay, we can accept the business administrator's comment verbally and consider it to be effectively a change on the resolution?
Yes, yes.
Very good, we will think so. Councilman Mayor,
That's it. Thank you.
I have another line. Councilman Monk, is that you?
Yeah, thank you. No, I had a question also on 26. The process, the bidding was done through the city, right? How do you get to $1 million?
we bid it out more than once, by the way. This was the best number.
But there are no proposals attached. I mean, it says there that,
What do you mean?
a list of proposals that were down. No, did anyone else bid on this thing? There's no attach, usually get an attachment of who bid on this thing. I just can't get my head around this, $1 million for design and construction management of an underpass?
That is correct. Let me see. Here it is, back up. That was a backup, but this is the wrong backup. Yeah, so we have a letter from DCA that says to move forward with it, but you're looking, I know you're looking for the responses to the bid.
All right, who bid, how many people bid on this thing?
It's not on the resolution?
No,
It's usually on the resolution.
it's in the back of it.
Okay, let me see what we got. The city bid it 4 times and only Collier submitted for both rounds of bidding. So I just got that from the engineer. So that's why they didn't put anybody else. 4 rounds of bidding in collaboration with the DCA, and that's why the letter is in the back.
Are there any other questions on 24 through 31? May we have a motion, please, to accept items?
So move.
31 with exceptions and changes being made to 30 as per our legal counsel. There is a motion. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Motion and second. Roll call, please, on 24 through 31 as amended.
Councilman Monk,
Yes.
Councilman Love,
Yes.
Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Garcia.
Yes.
Councilwoman Colon Montañez.
Yes.
And Council President Scher.
Yes, thank you. Roman numeral 8 on our agenda, ordinance for introduction and first reading, number 32. Proposed ordinance amending the designation of restricted parking for disabled persons by New Jersey license plate number. Is the motion please to accept for set down for second and final reading at our meeting of June 4? Motion
Second.
and second. Roll call, please.
Councilman Monk,
Yes.
Councilman Love, Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Garcia.
Yes.
Councilwoman Colon Montañez.
Yes.
And Council President Scher.
Yes, thank you. Roman numeral 9, please, payment of bills. Are there any questions on the bills? Seeing none, is there a motion to accept the bills, please?
Motion.
Second.
Motion and second. Roll call, please, on the bills.
Councilman Monk,
Yes.
Councilman Love,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mello, Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Garcia,
Yes.
Councilwoman Colon Montañez.
Yes.
And Council President Scher.
Yes, thank you. Administrator's report, Mr. Fernandez.
None at this time.
You sure? Well, we're actually going to lock you and Councilman Monk in a room together and see who comes out.
How many hours we spend on the phone?
Mayor's report. Mr. Mayor, sir.
I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate our head of DPW, Mr. Wilfredo Baez. His son just graduated, I believe, today from law school. Was it yesterday from law school?
Congratulations.
I also wanted to share on the record that we recently invested in a study of random surveys, and we have found that 9 out of 10 people tend to at least disagree with one person. Thank you.
And that's on a high note. Ladies and gentlemen, this council appreciates the tremendous efforts as proved tonight by the administration and by the mayor and by Mr. Fernandez. And I don't think that what occurred tonight with the approvals for Spirit Village should go without proper notice and regard. This is indeed an historic day for the city of Passaic and proves to be even more so under the mayor's guidance and leadership. Is there a motion to adjourn, please? Motion
Second.
and second. Roll call, please, to adjourn.
Councilman Monk?
Yes.
Councilman Love?
Yes.
Councilwoman Mello?
Yes.
Councilman Mayor?
Yes.
Councilman Garcia?
Yes.
Councilwoman Colon Montañez?
Yes.
And Council President Sher.
Yes, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.